I will be with you in just one moment. Yes, I did contemplate doing the show in my birthday suit, but it's still a couple years. All right. Come in. I want to, let's see, let's start this thing. Push this button, and I want to see, what is this button? Hey, it turns everything on like it's supposed to. Mic's on, you're there, I'm here. It's my birthday. I'm going to yodel like it's my birthday. I'm going to party like it's your birthday. I'm going to have such a birthday, you wouldn't believe it. It's going to be the most wonderful birthday I could ever have. That's almost a pretty good Karen LaKaren look, actually, now that I look at it. I've never seen that one before, but... Excuse me, I'd like to speak to the manager, please. This is completely unacceptable. Yes, today is my birthday, but more importantly, it is my mother's birthday. So right out of the gate, I want to take a moment. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear greatest mom in the world. Happy birthday to you. I love you and hi. I don't know if she's watching. She probably doesn't. She's going to call in the middle of the show, forgetting that I have a show, and that's how. I've decided that it's the main reason I could never be a bank robber, besides my own personal morals and ethics, is because my mom would FaceTime me right in the middle. Like, I'd be like, everybody on the fucking floor, nobody move. Dada was small bills, no die packs. Get that saving. Get the fucking, who's it? The fuck is not, oh shit. Mom! Like, I'm dead serious. You're like, Mom, I can't talk right now. A, I'm driving, which is unsafe. And B, I am driving from the scene of a crime followed by the police. All right, before you lawyer up, Sparks, we want to give you a chance to tell your side of the story, maybe peel some time. Didn't we take his phone when we frisked him? I'm sorry. 1 second. Mom, I'm about to be hit with a phone book. No, they're interrogating me. No, yeah, of course they caught me. Yes, they caught me. All right, I'll call you back. I love you. I love you too. Okay, I love you too. Okay, bye. And scene. That's totally why I would end up that way. Also, thanks for asking. My neck is feeling much better. I do have Legolas hair today because I've decided for my birthday that's the hair I want to wear. But also, I noticed that if people don't know that I have the extra ponytail, it just looks like the world's biggest fucking mullet, which I am very proud of, quite frankly. I was going to say something relatively negative, but fuck that. Anyways, by the way, hi chat room, love you guys. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate it. Also, today is Mark Hamill's birthday, my brother from another Mos Eisley, and we love him. We love Mark Hamill. So tell him his birthday brother Hal says happy birthday if you're on the social meds today. Also, It's a day to always remember what a good man Christopher Reeve was. Christopher Reeve was the one and only Superman, but also just a sweet human being, and probably single-handedly advanced the research into like treatments for paralysis more than any other single human in history. So, oh, and happy birthday to Delusional Mama's dad as well. Delusional Mama, to your Mama's daddy. Jesus, that sounds like Kentucky. Shoot it. Favorite actor, loved him in Somewhere in Time. Yes. I remember seeing. It was, I think, my first male-on-male kiss that I saw was in Death Trap. Oh, very shocking. Although, it was a plot point, so my mom and I were like, I knew it. They're together, and I knew it. Let's see. So you were a Christmas conceived baby? Fairly close. I would venture to say probably closer to like an early Valentine's Day, somewhere in there. New Year's, probably New Year's drunk baby. That makes sense. Yeah. Something like that. Either way, it was a big month, January. And what was the newsroom? Oh, Switching Channels. Oh my fucking God, Christopher Reeve is fantastic and hilarious in Switching Channels. That is a terrific movie, and people need to watch it. And it gets kind of like pushed aside as like a sitcom version of broadcast news, but it's wonderful. It's just terrific. It's a great movie. Yeah. Mark Hamill. I had to double check Kevin Conroy's date of death. Still, oh, I'm sorry. Anyways, it's my birthday, and I'm here doing a show, and I'm going to do a full show today both times. And there's a very distinct reason for that. Now, some people have asked, will I take the day off, or was I going to do a show, or am I not going to do a show? But to me, that presumes, I suppose, that this is something I would rather not be doing. That given my chance, I'd rather have, feet up on a beach somewhere. That's not how I live. Never. And it drives Summer crazy, quite frankly, because she's definitely a feet up on the beach kind of a person. If she could run everything off of a laptop and a phone from a beach with her feet up, that'd be her gig. I would go insane. I would lose my mind. I am, kind of a get in there. I literally, for this show, like, I'll make the graphics for the show and all this, whatever, and I'll dick around with stuff. And does it really matter to folks out there that much, since the content is so fantastic? Maybe not. But does it matter to me? Yes. But it also gives me sort of a hands-on, semi-tactile experience with the show that engages me with it. And it's just crucial to how I operate. I've always done that. I've always done my own graphics and that kind of stuff. I love doing my own band posters, all that stuff. Did I go to the football game last night? No. Summer and Ethan went, and I drove them and picked them up like I was a mom. I was soccer mom. I was football mom last night because they got 2 tickets from a friend at the last minute. And while my neck is way better, I was still not, I'm still not fully out of the woods yet, and we had just traveled. We got up ass early and flew back from DC, and I'm on the tired side, so I was very happy to come home and just collapse. Bad game. No, it was a good game. The Steelers won. That was a good game, if we're talking about the same game. Yeah, exactly. CSL. Like, if you they've often said, like, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life, and there's I don't think that's true at all. Quite frankly, I'm sure there's an ROI on that thought form, where the longer, if you really like something, but you could do without it, it'll be work a lot, very often. If you are kind of in the middle about it, and it's pedestrian, it's well within your comfort zone as far as physical ability, and you're able to pull it off without much whatever. The only thing about it will be like sort of fighting the boredom of it, I suppose, as a job. But if you really love something, if you desperately love what you do, it becomes work sometimes, because the standard to you matters more than even sometimes the standard of other people. And so you're your own driving force. You're your own cattle prod, as it were. And so it will absolutely be work. And I don't mind that. It is, to me, the fact that something in that case is work is in if you're doing what you love or you're doing some version of what you love, because there's a lot of love, there's a lot of things to love out there. Um, yeah, I just that if you if you love it that much, you will push yourself way far. Yeah, the Steelers charter emergency landing in Kansas City, oil pressure problems. They're still sitting in the plane, as far as I know. Quit it. You are too getting sound on YouTube. Your computer is off. Then, are you guys hearing me everywhere? Are you guys seeing everything? Okay. Why do I only see Twitch? YouTube people, sound off. Facebook people, sound off. Oh, I'm only in 1/3 of them. That's why. That's so weird. Okay, hold on one second. Might need to fix something. Hold on. It's always something. It's gotta be. It's always something. Hold on there. So why did the stream finish on YouTube? What are you talking about? What? Huh? Go to the dashboard. Fixing everything. Why do I have to fix everything? It's just madness. Am I on? It says I'm offline. What is happening? Oh, I see. That's why. That's silliness. Close. Reload page. All right. Now we'll get it. Hold on. Close that. Open this. Excellent. Go to 3 of 3. There we go. We're all good. Okay. That's so odd. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Live on YouTube. We're all good. All right. Good. I'm like, not on my birthday. God damn Hajar. All right. Facebook people, how you doing? And also, anybody who's on Shitter right now, if you're watching this at all, please let me know, like in the thread below it or something, because I'm about to shut down that feed to Twitter and replace it with like LinkedIn, or if I could just get if anybody knows how to get the Instagram Insta TV live thing working. I can't. They have to give you like permission or let you in. It's so odd. I don't even know what the standard is, and it's impossible to find. But I need a 4th place to stream just in case, because Salon Pause. No, it's a Tiger Balm actually. I'm well past Salon Pause. We're beyond pain to just the healing part. We're fine. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, Rob, you're an inspiration. No, you're an inspiration, Rob Glenn. No, you are. I am always, if I ever had a parallel track career, that would require total dedication to the point of exclusion of almost every other aspect of my life, I can maybe catch up to where Rob is in terms of computers and engineering, and it would be a dream gig. I will check my Venmo. My watch and my phone are in the other room. I didn't bring them in here like a jerk. I was so excited to talk to you guys. I will, and so thank you guys. Anybody who, we're close to the computer. We're close. Thanks to the fact that my mom also made a donation to it as a birthday gift. From Scotland. Kamada ho, Nigel. If I'm saying that right. Kamada how, right? Is that pretty close? I'm working on it. I'll try to do that if I can. I'm doing, it's okay. All right. Close. Hey, that's all I'm shooting for. I'm starting up. By the way, that's one of my goals for the year, Nigel, is Gaelic. This is the year of Gaelic for me. So, coming to how? Yeah, there it is. But it doesn't, it's spelled like that, but it's not pronounced at all like that. The Anglicization of words, that when you use words that don't actually is just rude. It's just a dick move. Thank you for the 666. Yeah, it's a great day to do 666 or 25 because today's the 25th, or 54. Hey, either way, the main thing though that I want to talk about today is, and I know some of you know this, but I do my New Year's resolutions on my birthday every year. So because it's my new year, God damn it. And I recommend that to everybody. You can always have one for New Year's if you want to, do one along with everybody else, and it's, on a social level, I think those traditions are good. I think they have value. It's like this whole fucking thing of doing like a cultural revolution on everything. Like all traditional stuff was shit. It's all born out of terribleness. Like get the fuck out of here. Just relax, will you? Enjoy Thanksgiving. Just give thanks and have a meal with your fucking family. You know what I mean? Get over yourself. That you're gonna like divert the boat of history away from where stuff was. Like, well, it started terrible, but it went to a good place. But we've got to turn it back to the bad place, and then crash the fucking boat. It makes no sense to me. So when it comes to holidays, fucking dress up for Halloween, give gifts on Christmas or Hanukkah or whichever holiday you are. And by the way, happy Yom Kippur, if you can say it that way, to our Jewish friends out there. It often fell on my birthday during my high school years at New Trier, where I was definitely outnumbered in terms of Jewish friends, uh, and and it was funny that like, all right, well, today's my birthday, but you guys got stuff to do. Okay, never mind. Um, I'll do New Year's resolutions. You're already perfect. Well, perfection is a road, not a destination. So that's true. Uh, it's Yom Kippur is more like it. So, oh, Vienna, Austria, nice. Hi, Mr. Ryzen Mojo. Is it true that you're like spy central, the spy capital of the world? Like that's where the spies all go to knock boots and sell each other out or whatever? I'm fascinated. I got to get there at some point. Absolutely, Hilly. Bist du glücklich und lachst über beide Ohren? Well, you do, and you'll clean it up. It's not that kind of party. Don't yuck anybody's Yom Kippur. Exactly. So thank you, Chris. So, anyways, I recommend that for everybody. Also, like I said before, because it's my mom's birthday, I have had the habit my entire life of getting my mom a gift on my birthday every year because it's her birthday too. And I think that everybody should get their mom a birthday gift on their birthday. Just one. Just give her something. Just do it. Just a little. Send her a card and say, "Love you. Thanks for this birthday, mom. It is my birthday, and you did all the work on the birthing of the day. So thank you." Um, yeah, she did all the work. That's right. You're not surprised I'm a Libra? Yeah, I'm definitely. Oh, and by the way, there are a lot of people. I'm sure they're out there who are under the misapprehension that astrology works exactly the opposite of how it actually works in theory, metaphysically speaking. The idea is that, and people often shrug off, oh, I'm the way I am because I was born on that day, like that day has control over my destiny. And da-da. No, you were born on that day because you're that type of soul. That type of soul, at least this ride and the go around, if you believe in reincarnation, you came in on that particular day because you have a particular set of things that you have to work on during your life and a particular set of abilities, a particular set of skills that you've built up, and then it's kind of like a keyhole that opens up in the sky. You only fit that particular shape during that period, and that's when you can enter the earth plane. That's what the astrology is. Not most people are like, why does the day define who I am? No, it's the other way around. You define why you were born on that day. I don't know why nobody knows that. Whether you believe in it or not is immaterial. It's just that everybody has that part backwards. And if you're going to not like something, at least not like it for the right reasons. Astrology is just a blueprint. You are the dynamic project. That's true, but you bring in those elements as a person, right? It's just, I don't know why people have the concept of it backwards, except it has a very childish fixation. Does that make sense? Like you're not my real dad. You won't tell me what to do. Like that seems to be the root of the attitude around why some people buck astrology as an idea. I'm just saying it's let's see. Somebody said I'm a Cancer. I'm ruled by my emotions. No, you're ruled by your emotions. That's why you were born during Cancer, during the Cancer window. See how that works? Ta-da! You have authority over your life, contrary to popular belief. Yes, exactly. If Hal was recreated, who would do? Oh, you mean if I was? If I died and came back as somebody, well, I'd come back as me anyways. See, here's the thing. I think more than likely we live in a simulation, and I think more than likely these lifetimes are so that we can learn particular, empathy skills, get over certain traumas, move through things, become victor and villain, poor and rich, go through all of it, so that by the time we've lived 10,000 lifetimes in this simulated environment, we're a decent, you know, functional person to be around, and therefore they can release us into the whatever the outside world outside of this simulation is. It's not heaven, but it's an advanced society, right? And I've made this case before, and you don't have to buy into this, and it doesn't matter. It's immaterial to your learning here, anyways. It's the same way, like, is if you're in college, is there a lot of other shit you could be doing? Yes. Does it matter? No, because you're here to learn a particular thing. Who's running the simulated program? We are like advanced humans, probably who live to be about 3,000, 5,000 years old. But you wouldn't let anybody who lives, if you live to be 3,000 years old, you wouldn't let any like human being under 100 years old out into your world without putting them through some sort of like massive wisdom accelerator. And that's what it would be. Like an ancestor simulation would be, and that's what like Nick Bostrom and other people think this is. This universe that we live in is an ancestor simulation, that this happened, that we're running this game, in a way that we're comfortable with, uh, you know, but thousands of years ago we became relatively physically immortal, but the maturation process didn't get any faster. You're still a shitty human for for the first 150, 200 years of your life, right? So no matter what you do, because you're still maturing. So what do? Put somebody into a simulator, let them run an entire life Inception style in like 10 hours. And so you lay into this simulator, like the Matrix. They plug you in, and you live a life. If you want to learn math so that you're a master mathematician after all this, because that's a skill you'll want, then you live 10 lifetimes as a mathematician, and it takes you about 3 days in the real world. But you experience it as a whole life, and all the stuff and everything, and even the boring parts, because if you didn't have the boring parts, you wouldn't believe it was real. If you could fast forward through it, doesn't work. And part of it is also maturing your humanity so that you become a decent human being. That would be my, yeah, this explains genetic recall. Exactly. Like all of these things work. So what I'm MBT theory for the best simulation explanation. I'm not sure. What do you mean MBT theory? I don't know the acronym or those letters in particular. But the if a bot was created today, it would be a Libra. Well, that's the other thing too, is that not everybody you meet in this world is a real human outside of it. There's a lot of bots running around in theory. There's also free repeaters, which would be people that they're NPCs effectively, but they interact with you for a specific lesson, so that you don't use a real person for that who's got their own lessons to deal with, because that would be unfair to their path and it would be too hard to coordinate. So you create these kind of in and out NPC kind of beings that kind of come and go. And everybody has one, and a lot of times they look alike. So you'll see somebody, and it doesn't matter what race they are, they look kind of vaguely like this person you've known in your whole life. I'm just talking in terms of like the kind of metaphysics that everybody talks about. And this would be my scientific explanation for why it would actually work and why not. Right? Neil deGrasse and Hal Sparks interview, pay-per-view. I'm for it. So the idea would be is that, based on the premise that, let's say, humans at some point, whether they've done it already, we've done it already, or whether we're going to do it, or whether time as we know it is immaterial, because if we're in a simulation, we're in a form of stasis anyways, Inception style. It doesn't matter. Time in this sphere wouldn't matter, because the people we're talking about are extratemporal. They would be outside this time scope in their own time scope, which would be real time passing. This is fake time passing. But so the idea is, let's say humans figure out at one point how to live to be 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years old, or immortal effectively. We figured out a way to make our bodies just kind of immortal in whatever way. But we recognize that humans are still going to be human, and you can only remain human if you go through the process of humanity, of living a life full of input and full of scary moments and trauma and all this stuff. It is uh, part and parcel to being human. They might have found at one point, like, maybe we just have a workaround where we don't have to go through all this shit. We just teach everybody everything Matrix style. You stick it in your head and you're like, I know Kung Fu. And that's that. And they were like, nope, people are, now we've got a bunch of highly skilled idiots running around who have no soul and no wisdom because they're just overpoweringly intelligent, but they don't have any, they don't understand, their empathy hasn't grown at the same rate. So we got to find, how would you teach empathy? How would you, on that scale and that quickly? So you say you got 100 years. Again, explain Trump. Oh yeah, it's very easy. He's a toddler who's running through a particular lesson form that we all have to go through in varying degrees. That's it. But yeah, experience being the best teacher. So what you do is you create a playground that's very realistic, that's, that is convincing and full of the depth of feeling the humans would have, because you would want the max amount of joy and sorrow in someone's life. Otherwise, again, what's the point? What's this, this sort of half-assed like version of life with like bumper pool where you don't really experience the ups and downs, right? And at a certain point, and by the way, Trump might be an NPC as well. He might be a non-player character. He's meant to represent something so that you can pin off of his morals and check yourself as like a ballast. Like, I will never be like that, or I find myself leaning that way, or I have the tendencies like that I have to work against. That's the only value those people have in your life ever, no matter what you think. So, the 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 point is, let's say you've got this society that lives 3,000 years old, and they're like, every time we still have children, but as they get into their 20s and 30s and 50s, they all think they can find a workaround. They all go through midlife crises kind of stuff, even though we've figured out a way to make them live past it. There's still this knee-jerk physical, biological, hormonal reaction until you crest into your elder years when you're, 150 or 200 years old, whatever that number is. So we got to do something about it. How do we do it? How would you do it? How would you do it? You would set up a simulator that would allow people at whatever age to go in and simulate an entire life to gain experience and go through and basically try on all aspects of life without doing any real damage in the real world, right? That's, in theory, this is how you would work it out. And let's say 3,000 years from now, this is exactly what I would be doing. This is what I would think you would have to do. So, till you're 15, 16, whatever the age of being problematic is, you're just a kid running around being a kid. And then when you enter what would be effectively high school age, you go into one of these, insertion academies, and you go into them and you just go into the simulator, and for an hour, you're a life that lived 30 years, something like that. You're a life that lived 50 years. And you experience it like I said, like Inception or The Matrix, like that, where the time doesn't really, it's like, it takes you 2 hours in your time, but you experience 80 years because the brain can absorb all this stuff at that speed. And so you would, instead of just learning the information where they just pump, engineering skills into your head, you would learn also the other aspects of that life. Yes, you could live life as an engineer or as a singer or as a politician or as a mine worker or any of those things, but you would also learn the emotional content of that life. We need emotional content, not anger. So, and then you would wake up, go, holy shit, that was nuts. And you would go, okay, next up, you're going to be on the receiving end of what you were doing. We watched what you did. We watched your experience. You were a little rude. You were kind of a bully. And so next life, we're going to have to, we're checking you. And we're going to put you in one where you, quite frankly, get bullied a little bit. So you know what it feels like. And then after that life, you're like, oh, shit. Okay, so Not an impulse I should act on because it makes other people hurt. That's not a good idea. And then some people, go through it and they are the bully for a long time because they just stick to it and they just get thrown away. They're just like, you know what, this person's not a keeper. That's the defending your life idea. Is that people go back hundreds of times. After a while, they'll throw you out. But so that's the point. And karma isn't so much a like you're gonna get it, but you need to learn the other side of this. And on and outside this, and this is also speaks to people's. I could talk about this. My birthday. This is my birthday lecture on what the fuck we're talking about. Sorry, this is if I'm boring or weirding anybody out. This is just a thought experiment. Don't dive too hard into it. Just experience it. So let's say over the course of learning these lives, you start developing what's effectively an overarching empathy for your fellow human beings. And a more elevated human being, the more elevated the human being, the more they seem to have that, right? And it might not be that they are better than you. It's just they've been back more times. In the same way that somebody 5 grades ahead of you knows more about this shit than you do. If you're taking Spanish, first year high school Spanish, a fourth year high school Spanish student's going to speak better Spanish than you. And it's not because they're better than you as a human. They've just been through the class more times. And that's where the reincarnation concept comes in, is that it's not, we think of it as metaphysically like reincarnation as there's sort of amorphous spaghetti monster in the sky, God, blah, blah, blah. But if you looked at this like a simulation, it makes total fucking sense. It makes absolute sense that this would be an environment they would set up. And so the idea is that you want to kind of get out of this part of it, prove that you don't have to go back as soon as possible. And some people try to trick their way out by pretending to be good people while they're in there. These are the people who, allegedly take on good traits. They're trying to bullshit their way out of the matrix, as it were, out of the simulation. And they're like, no, I'm a good person. I'm a good person, when they're really not. They haven't learned that lesson yet. They're just trying to get, and that would explain. Thank you so much, Anne. Did someone slip Hal an edible? By the way, James, I have never done drugs, and this is why. So the premise being is that let's say the Buddhists call it 10,000 lifetimes, then you achieve nirvana. Well, what would be nirvana in a material sense? But you just get to leave the brain academy, the wisdom academy, in this outside world, and you're done. And then you get to live your life amongst everybody else with this elevated view of humanity, and you also would be so wise, I think, in your interactions with other people, because you've been, not only victim but perpetrator as well. You've been monster, and mouse through the entire, the multiple lifetimes. You're aware of the times when you were the worst person in the world. We've all done that part of the ride idea. The theory is that you would do it early because you're impulsive and you get bored, and as a teenager you would try on the hat of being a monster, and then you don't, and then you learn your lesson. That's not necessarily, I think, true, because human beings are human beings, and the idea is that you would want everybody to be their true self. But let's say 3,000 years from now, human beings interact with a couple of alien species that are this is true. It's CSL. Course in Miracles and other stuff will plant the seeds of this as a possibility. Although I definitely have more of a science background in my belief. Dan Bongino sends his regards. Hi, Bongholio. He's new, by the way. That's in the simulation. He's on like day 2, and he's not doing very well. So after maybe another 1,000 years worth of lifetimes, we'll be able to have a conversation. Poor kid. But the idea is that you develop empathy for other people over the course of these lifetimes, because you've been capable of awful, and you're aware of your dark side because you've experienced it fully. Now, why don't you remember your other lives? Because that would not help. If you knew it was bullshit, you wouldn't pay attention to the details. You wouldn't live it. You'd go, this is all bullshit. Every time. And in the same way that like somebody if you sits in a movie like a horror movie and they're like, that's fake, that's fake, you're not enjoying the movie, you're not experiencing the movie, you're not learning the moral of the movie, you're not going through it all. If you've got too many outs, if the theater is visible to you while you're watching the movie, you're not going to get anything out of it. So you basically, that would be why you would need a memory wipe. The character aspects of yourself might carry through because you might be on a thread for a while. Like, okay, this is where you learn this particular kind of empathy, or this is where you learn this particular type of focused intellect, right? So, lifetime after lifetime, you're really just going through this one focused thing. So, you kind of have a memory or an attitude, or you grow up as a sort of savant in things. You've got a little bit of a head start because you're trying to, it's a particular skill point, not the wisdom aspect of it. It takes a few lifetimes to dig in there. And that's why you would, you wouldn't need to forget that part of it, or it would seem kind of automatic, or, you know, like, I don't know, I'm just comfortable in front of a piano, that kind of thing. So, um, but most of the time you'd have to forget things in the way that you'd have to when you're trying to study for a final in school. You got to put everything else out of your mind. Everybody thinks this is their last life, which is a guarantee of it not being. Also, and again, when people talk about it in terms of, yeah, Groundhog Day is a good metaphor for it, as is, I just watched Live, Die, Repeat again, the Edge of Tomorrow, which I love. And it caused me to kind of contemplate this whole idea again, because all of those stories are about, if you really look at it, character. Yeah. It's not about can they achieve the goal, but can they achieve the growth that comes with the goal? Is the goal itself, because that's any goal you set. And like I said, this is a great way to look at how I've dovetailed this back in. Huh? You're good, kids, you. Is any goal you set for yourself, one of the reasons why we set goals for ourselves in the first place is not just the sort of material gain of achieving that thing, but the elevation of ourselves along the path of doing that, right? You make yourself better by expanding your circle of influence and your circle of capability. And again, a lot of times, whatever you're doing, if you're trying to expand a skill in one direction, it works like a circle. Anything you better yourself in also widens the circle of skill everywhere else, because anything you focus intently on or you dedicate yourself to in any way, um, automatically gives you the sort of resilient secondary characteristics that you would need to expand in other areas. Patience and focus and recognition that everybody goes through the tough parts. And if you go through tough things to try and achieve one thing, you recognize other people are going through tough things to try to achieve what they're doing, and you have more sympathy for them. Does that make sense? So therein lies the lesson, and now I'm ready to, I think, be Marianne Williamson's vice president. uh, she'll never forgive me, I think, for intimating that in the going back and forth to the matrix multiple times into the simulator that we go into, um um just for the record, uh I think she's younger than I am, and it bothers her. She finds it condescending when I'm just like, it's just materially true. I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I'd love to find people who are smarter than me and talk to them. It's fascinating. I love it. I'm we're further along the path than I am. Isn't that the point? Right? Andrew Tate is a dumbass. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Well, here's a great example, because he's more a caricature than an actual human being in most people's lives. I'm never going to meet this guy, and neither are you, and nor would I want to. But there are two things that someone like Andrew Tate can service in our own growth. Okay, what their existence services in our own growth. One is contrast. I'm not going to be like that. Those kind of people have that value. Now, you don't need them. I'm not a big believer that you need ugly to have beauty. That's a little it's far too binary, to borrow the word, but those people can help you recognize um, what not to do, how following your impulses can go too far, and what it how and the ugly cascading effect it can have. You can learn those lessons without actually having to go through them, and so they have value in that regard. um and by the way, and Jimmy Carter, somebody brought up Jimmy Carter, and Rosalind went to the peanut festival and had peanut ice cream. He's doing great apparently, which is just beautiful. And he exists for the opposite reason, which is there's a resonant person that I can, that's like a tuning fork of good, that I can find the sort of vibrational energy of being a decent person. And if only, right? Could I, when I'm old and withered, will people speak as well of me as they do of Jimmy Carter, right? Just a lovely human being. That again, that's why he exists. Am I going to meet Jimmy Carter anytime soon? No, probably not. But he exists in my life and in your life, not just as a human being, but also as an icon or as a tuning fork that he has no responsibility for. This is only the use of in our own psyche. We can go those traits in him are valuable. Those traits that he has shown are something that I should work towards. And whereas Andrew Tate, move away, Jimmy Carter, move towards. These people have that kind of specific value in our life. And then the other one, I think, is the harder lesson, that when you talk about somebody like Andrew Tate or Russell Brand or somebody like that, which is when we're talking about the simulation theory and that you live many lives, have I lived a life where I was just as bad, where I did the awful things that they did? And it is only because I went through it in a lifetime and I was that terrible that I live with the regret and the pain and the recognition and the empathy, because I think, shared pain is one of the quickest ways to empathy. It's sort of a cheap way to empathy, but it does exist for humans. That am I repulsed by that because I am repulsed by it in me, and I need to find a way to be more charitable with myself as I cast off that and move away from any of that behavior, or anything that even any remnant of that behavior. Everyone lives with regret. I agree. I'm also not a big believer in no regrets. I find that childish and silly. I think regret is one of the great driving forces of your life. And I think a lot of us have done things that we regret, and they inform us going forward, like, not going to do that again. That was bad. I felt bad about that. I hurt people. I didn't want to be bad like that. I don't want to be like that anymore. Therefore, I regret it. You always say, what would Jimmy do? And never go wrong. That's right. If you watch Quantum Leap, you learn that evil exists only because good exists. That I don't believe, Amy. I don't. I think that's. Honest to God, I think that's silly. I think good exists in its own state, and evil is antithetical to it, but is not a polar opposite to it. Meaning that you need two poles to exist. That that is a limitation of mortality and living on a planet with a north and a south pole. We tend to make we tend to analogize things based on our experience in the physical world, and a lot of times there are no direct analogies for these things. We try to make sense of them, good and evil, blah blah blah, and it doesn't quite exist like that. I don't You don't do good things in your life simply to avoid doing evil, because I would argue that the opposite of good and the opposite of evil are nothing, nothingness, doing nothing, stasis. And again, you can make stasis evil and you can make stasis good in the right circumstance. By doing nothing in the face of something bad, you're contributing to that evil, and doing nothing in the face of something good, allowing it to happen, allowing the good to happen where you might muck it up. um, that's valuable. But again, the opposite of one is not negative one. The opposite of one is zero. Why don't we all excel at the same rate? Because we're human. Because we're unique. We are souls. It's not math. And I think that's the toughest part. That's why you would have to set up an ancestor simulation in the first place, in theory. It's because you couldn't just go, everybody grows at the same rate, everybody goes through the same lesson the same way, and everybody learns it. And you can tell that from like self-help books. Almost all self-help books say the exact same fucking thing. They all say the same thing, but they say it in a different way. What's trending? My birthday. Ideas on autism and simulation. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons why it would exist. Some of it simply might be some are NPCs meant to teach you empathy about someone and grow your communication ability to an extraordinary level, because communicating to someone who has autism or Asperger's or something like that requires even more depth of understanding and more communication linked to your nonverbal communication as well as your verbal communication. And having the ability to do that is extraordinary. So it turns you from, parent to angel in some cases. That would have that value. The other reason is that people themselves in the simulation might be too far skilled to too ahead in their skill set for their maturity, and so they shut off parts of themselves when they enter the simulation, so that they're not allowed to use. It's like living life with one arm tied behind your back, specifically so that you will build other parts of yourself. Does that make sense, Amber? They did it on purpose. Like, I'm going to go into this life with my hands tied behind my back and see if I can still be a decent, forgiving, open, smart human being. I can move past it. And if I can't, I'll try again next time. Yeah. And it's okay. It is okay. It might be because you were too smart for this life, and you got ahead of yourself, and you're like, all right. And they were like, simmer down. You're one of these ones, you're super smart. Okay, you're going to jump ahead, and we got to make sure you're learning the emotional stuff too. So what we're going to do is put you in this situation, and you'll be fine. It's going to be challenging, and it'll hurt at times, but that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to, so that you learn the value of that hurt, and you learn the value of how other people might hurt. And so when you're traveling through space in the fucking Enterprise or whatever they do on the outside of this thing, you come across an alien species that doesn't speak our language, that communicates in different ways, you will have a highly elevated ability to communicate, empathize, and be aware of danger and all kinds of other things as well, because I would assume that life is just as big outside as it is inside, right? Who told you that you were naked? My neighbor, and then I had to close my drapes. Dumbest thing Hal's ever said, opposite of one being zero, numbers don't have opposites. Okay. Wayne, in terms of that analogy, how about this? The opposite of something isn't that thing missing, it's nothing. The opposite of something is nothing, not the opposite of that something being stolen. The direct opposite of it. We do not operate between there is a cookie on the desk or someone stole my cookie. There is either a cookie or there isn't. If there isn't because there never was, that doesn't mean someone stole it. Therefore, the opposite of it not being there isn't that somebody ate it or somebody stole it. Does that make sense? I'll wait. Yeah, there was no zero in Roman times because they weren't. What's the point? The chats are always nice. Another loving reminder how much we agree on, brother. I agree, CSL. I mean, it's like, I feel like we should do a philosophy course at some point. It's not a zero-sum game, right? I wish you'd been my math teacher. Nice. I sent you a super chat. YouTube said it failed. Oh, no. Now the money is gone from. Oh, it'll probably be in there, Pam. It might be a glitch because if it's there, it's there. If If you send it twice, I'll send it back to you. Don't worry. I apologize. That part's out of my um, hands. Favorite cake? Red velvet, because I kind of like the sour, like cream cheese icing, right? Opposite of winning an election is losing an election. Trump lost, right? Um, yeah, because the election itself is the predicate. But the opposite of being a politician and not being a politician isn't that you lost an election. Most people aren't politicians until they choose to be one, right? How if this is a simulation, aren't we all just NPCs? No, NPCs are non-player characters. That means there's no one on the outside of the simulation in the simulator plugged in. There would be like think of it as when you're in a game and you're playing and there are bots in the game. Some of the people you're playing with are real people. Some of the people that are in there are bots, right? The bots would be the NPCs. By the way, it doesn't matter. For your experience here and the lessons learned, you are to treat NPCs in theory the same way you treat real human beings. You don't go, oh, that person's just a bot. Fuck it. That's you could effectively think that that's way like if you ever watch I know you guys watch a lot of true crime, but like serial killers who kill prostitutes or people who are on the edges of society or people that the forgotten people in society, these would be the NPCs of society. They don't actually matter on the grand scale according to these monsters, and they kill them. You're still just as guilty, even if they were. Doesn't matter because it's you that matters. You are the one learning the lesson. If you treat anything like shit, that's about you being shitty, not about whether or not they exist right or not. You know, whether they're real outside this or inside this, it doesn't matter. It's about the lessons you're learning, and you don't get to pick. Bots don't feel. That's right, but you can be judged on how you treat bots. Correct? In a game, for example, same thing. Bigfoot's been in a Beastie Boys video in a tenacious. He's very popular. Look at that, 1.1K watch. I'm scaring everybody off with this big talk. But it's my birthday, so I felt like I could, yammer on about it. If that's okay with you guys. Nice. Yours September 22nd. So is Mark Torians, and he had a party at the Rainbow on Friday, and I couldn't go because I was in DC. And I was glad to be in DC. It was nice to do the show for Carl and help raise money for his candidacy. Very exciting. And yeah, devils are like bots. They still got to be human. Well, here's the other thing too: is what would, because I love the sort of religious analogies. If you try to come up with what would be the scientific reason? What would be the logical reason? What would be the material reason outside the simulation for having things like that? Either as demons and all that kind of stuff as analogies or whatever. Even as chaos agents, where they're like, okay, this person has lived, dozens of lifetimes where everything's pretty cut and dried. We need to throw a monkey wrench into their experience where they see a ghost, because sometimes when we're dealing with alien life form, they have a material physical body and sometimes they don't. And it freaks people out. It's not mystical, it's just mist. It's just mist. Right? So we got to let them run through a life where everybody thinks they're crazy because they see something that isn't there. And because at some point in the real world, you see stuff that isn't there. Because you can. Because, yeah, I find that fascinating. Why not? Yeah? Aw, thanks. Hi, Francie. Trump is a chaos agent. I would agree. I agree. I think there's some argument to be made that certain I used to say I believe in three gods: the God of love and kindness, the God of lessons, and the God of completely random bullshit. And the third one is there just so you don't see the other two coming. Because if you knew the lesson was coming, you wouldn't really learn it. It's kind of like studying for the test, not reading the book, right? If you knew the God of lessons had a test for you and you just studied for the test, you wouldn't really absorb the material. You just kind of learn for the test, right? Humans tend to do that. And if you knew that the God of loving kindness was always there to catch you after this is over, and that the blood you bleed in this lifetime is fake. It's just there for you to learn a very deep, very important, very real lesson while you're here. Um, you you might flippantly disregard the lessons in the same way that if you're watching a horror movie or an action movie or something like that, and you were just kind of talking out loud about the special effects or more focused on your popcorn, you really wouldn't learn whatever the lesson of the moral or the character arcs that the story is trying to teach you. So the god of completely random bullshit comes in to scatter the entire thing, so you don't see the lessons coming, and you don't always assume you're gonna have a soft landing, and that keeps you, as it were, on your toes, to use a torture analogy. Right? Trump supporters are bots, change my mind. Some of them aren't. Some of them are just brand fucking new. Some of them are like toddlers. Imagine, if you will, like, let's just say I've been talking about this analogy in terms of it only happens in high school. Let's say it doesn't. Let's say we start this with like 5-year-olds. And a 5-year-old is put into this thing, and they are born again, and they experience the 5 years old. And at 5 years old, their little brain has a whole life that it goes through. And then they wake up as a 5-year-old with the life experience of an 85-year-old. And then they do it again and again and again and again. They might freak out a little bit, but they still got to go through it to get the number of lifetimes checked off before they get, as far as their elevation goes. So you might have a bunch of fucking toddlers running around here as full-grown adults. That would explain a lot of shit, right? Yes, it would be awful, but it beats the alternative. Oh, Tara's ready. Okay, good. Hold on. I didn't realize she was totally confirmed, and so I will bring her in. Give me 1 second. Lovely. Give me 1 second. My whole thing's been like upside down. Hold on, I gotta put my headphones in. Turn my headphones up. Yo, turn my headphones up. Yo. All right, excellent. And then we turn this on, and we enable this. We turn on this, and then there's a thing, and we turn on here, and then we can almost see her. Give me 1 second, and I was okay. Oh, okay. And then she can see me, and then that's the wonderful part. And we'll close this, and hold on 1 second. And then I've got to make a little screen for her, which just takes a moment, if you will. Just and where is her name? I've got it in here. There's #RipPortland, and and there's Tara, and then I just have to turn off Johnny's name, which is under the thing, and then I've got to cut and paste her copy link, and then I put it into here, and then we're almost there. We're getting so close. It's very exciting. One of my other goals for this year is to have entirely different scenes for some of our regulars, so that I can just jump straight to them, because I'm cool like that. I'm cool like that. But I will get there. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can, 3, 2, 1, it's Tara Dublin. Look at that, coming in. Hot, look at this. It's so good. How are you?
Happy birthday
stop it.
to you,
Look out.
Hal. Happy swinging, happening Monday birthday
I'll
to
thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy Vegas birthday, swinging those hips, house sparks. Happy birthday.
Oh, she got pretty at the end.
To you.
Oh, hold on. I got a fan. Thank you so much.
Haven't you had a week? How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm, my dad, after the week I get a message from my mom last night that my dad is driving down to Tennessee because my other uncle, my dad's brother, is in the exact same shape my other uncle was in.
How? I'm so sorry. That's
all right. It's and again, like, woof. But
yeah,
it's interesting being a Libra, as we've talked a little bit. I'm gonna put the whole first hour is gonna be on an album. I'm just gonna release it as kind of it's gonna be an album called Thoughts. And it's
is it gonna be called Thoughts with the subtitle? Your parents did it on Christmas.
Ouch! Look at that. My parents did it all the time. Let's understand. I was born in 1969. That was peak fucking on Earth.
For that sure. Year. I was a 69 baby too, baby.
See,
but
you know
sooner. My
Well,
parents did it sometime in the fall because I was born in April, but
understood.
Gen
Well, it was getting
X
cold, right?
represent.
That's right. And so yeah, so I like uh, watching this kind of like they're on. We make a joke that every time my dad calls, it's because somebody's dead, and it's always going to be somebody like, "Hey, it's your dad. How you doing? Just want to let you
Uh,
know that you remember Gabe Francine Jenkins? You met him once when you were 2 years old at Friendship. Yeah, he died. Like it's all
oh,
it's become like a running gag. But my Uncle Philip is a little worse for wear apparently.
I'm
So
sorry.
it's just we're in that window, and I said this Monday, but in these moments I feel for my parents because my mom is now the last survivor of her nuclear family. She's the only one
Hmm.
left, and my dad, if my Uncle Phil goes, is in the exact same spot, almost in the same timing. It's kind of
Hmm.
fascinating. We talk about like life lessons in this. Both his parents are gone. His sister and his brother, would be gone. And on my mom's side, exact same thing. She had a sister and a brother, both gone. And my grandparents, obviously. So it's got to be a moment because when you've got I don't know, do you have siblings? What's your sibling
I have a
situation?
I have a younger brother who is named Phil, ironically, and so my
Huh.
sons call him Uncle Phil. So as soon
All
as you say
right.
Uncle Phil,
Yeah.
that's at his. And my mom was actually visiting all last week, and
Hmm.
I'm visiting from New York, and she's still very young. She's only
Yeah.
76, and
Hmm.
incredibly grateful for that, and that she can come and visit and can get
Yeah.
around, and especially she arrived the day after you had to cancel your show last Monday, so it makes you extra profoundly grateful for the
Yeah.
time that we have and the time that we get to spend together. And
Hmm.
like aging is a privilege right now, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
And and the worst part of being a human being is losing the other humans we love, losing the other mammals we love.
Mhm.
That's the hardest part, and being aware that we just have a limited amount of time here, and we don't know what that time will be, and
Mhm.
we often squander that time because we think we have forever. Oh, there's time for that, and there's time for this. There's not.
Right.
So,
Right.
if like if your family's in some kind of dumb beef over a stupid reason, like let's rectify that. And if you
Yeah, as
haven't,
quickly as
if you have
possible. Right.
right, if you've got a member of your family who's decided to go no contact for whatever their arbitrary reason is,
Yeah.
maybe stop doing that. Maybe stop doing that, because we keep getting these
Right.
life lessons handed to us that you think you've got all the time in the world and you don't.
Mhm.
So, and spending this last week with my mom was glorious. I can't
Mhm.
stand that there's a continent between us.
Right.
And it just makes you hyper aware to make the most of the time that you have. And
Yeah.
so, I'm trying to live in a space of gratitude as much as possible, because like, even if your mom gets on your nerves or someone in your family bugs you a little
Right.
bit, be grateful that they're here to bug you.
Right. Totally. You
Like,
know how
those
good
little
that is?
annoyances are
Yeah.
what you're gonna miss later. Remember how mom
Absolutely.
always used to tell that story about that time? Like, learn
Yes.
from learn from them, because while the GOP is trying to whitewash our written history, like, our verbal history is probably more important than ever. So let's get that on the books for
Right.
sure. Like, pass all that down, and the things that we are learning from previous generations. Like, I know you don't do the TikTok, but the Gen Z kids are suddenly
Right.
obsessed with Gen X. They're obsessed with us.
Well,
They're
I can
obsessed,
see why. We're the goods.
right? We have it all, but like, they're like, how did you do stuff without internet? Like, there's a TikTok going viral right now where
Mhm.
there's this girl who's like, I really want to know, what if you wanted to find out the name of a person and you couldn't find it? What would you do? And we
A-
were like, she was like, did you
Ask.
go to the library, and I was
Oh.
yeah, like we would
Yes.
like ask somebody,
Right.
like mom, who was like that actor who was like in that movie that took place in Casablanca. I mean,
Mhm.
like, what the fuck? And then
You'd
there's
go
this,
to Blockbuster and you would rent the movie, and then if they were a big star, you'd know right away who they were. And if they
right,
weren't a big star, you would have to either watch till the end or fast forward to the end to find out. That's how it did.
right.
A
We
tape.
read the
Yeah.
credits
Right.
Then perhaps we went back to Blockbuster and asked the nerd behind the counter, do you have any more movies starring Ellen Barkin? Because
Yeah.
I find her a great, talented actress. So,
Yes.
we did do that. And then there's this other video that I did a duet with where it's like, how old were you when you started cooking? I was like, 6. I was
Yeah.
making scrambled eggs I was using the stove by
Right.
the age of 6. They were like, how old was the first time you started babysitting? I was like, I don't know, 11 or
Yeah.
12, right? You were maybe 10 even. Did you ever walk anywhere by yourself as a child? I was like, only all the
Everywhere.
time.
Yeah.
And then there were a few
Yeah.
that didn't apply to me, like, how old were you when you first held a firearm? And I'm like, well, I'm a Jewish kid from New Jersey. I never held a firearm. But like the last one was, did you get caught
5.
all the time or did you get away with everything? I was like, dude, I got away with so fucking much.
Yeah.
I got away with
There was
things
no
my mom
evidence.
still doesn't know about.
Right. There's
I'm
no evidence.
54. There are things I would never tell my mother. I'm
Mhm.
54. We'll never tell her. So, Gen X got away with a lot. Yeah, we're tough. Yeah, we're scrappy. Yeah, we can make shit happen. Yeah, we live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, I can't pay my rent next week. It's fine. It's fine. We're all scrappy. We're all going to dig in and we're all going to pay our rent with bags of pennies that we found under the couch
Sure.
and
We've been there.
and from babysitting. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know. We have a lot going on. We have a
Yeah.
lot going on.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but truthfully, truthfully, I had a great visit with my mother, and instead of being all ageist,
Mhm.
millennials and Gen Z, maybe ask us questions you can actually learn shit from.
Right.
Like let's do that. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
I
I would appreciate
it's
that.
interesting because I had, while I grew up definitely Gen X, and my experience, I would argue, in Chicago and in forward into the 90s was extraordinarily Gen X. Everything pre Chicago was, my life was much more like living in the 1930s, but for a
Right.
couple of options, movies and records. But even still, they had movies and records back then. They were just not as good. But right, but every other aspect of it, I used to listen to old radio. I didn't have a television set. We lived out in the woods. We had a wood burning stove that we brought out and put on a piece of broken marble that my dad had gotten from a job site that he'd cut into a base so that the wood burning stove that was on legs wouldn't burn through the floor over time
Mhm.
because of where
Mhm.
we put it. And we would put a pipe out of the back of it that would run up into the top of the chimney because it had a hole in the top of the chimney that you would cover up half the year. And that's what heated the house. And on certain
Sounds
nights,
safe.
yeah,
Sounds totally safe and
on
EPA
certain
friendly.
nights, it was so fucking cold that my sister and I, my parents' room was a little better insulated because it was an older part of the house. But my sister and I, our rooms were so cold, we would sleep on the couch or on the floor near the wood burning stove, just to be tolerably warm. And who else is jumping in here? Who's this? Somebody else is in the thing.
Who's in the
Uh,
thing?
I don't know. Who's in the thing? Do you see that the person
Who
in the thing?
dares?
Who's
Who
that?
dares encroach?
Who is this?
Who
I'm very
goes
excited.
there?
Who goes there? I see. I get the picture. It's about to show up in a second. I don't know. Anyways, maybe it's just somebody jumping in to wish me happy birthday, but I don't hear anything.
I hope
just
so
it's
because you
there.
deserve the happiest.
Mm.
You share a birthday with Mark Hamill, by the way.
Yes, I do. He's my. I said earlier, he's my brother from another Mos Eisley, and yep. And
It's a joy. It's a joy to have Mark Hamill in your feed at all times,
yes,
but
it
it's even a
is.
bigger joy to have Mark Hamill follow you back. And it was when he
Yeah.
followed me back, I wished I could transport, but like back in time and brag to my little brother who's been obsessed with Star Wars like his entire
Right.
existence. And so 2 years in a row, I got Mark Hamill to wish my brother happy birthday on Twitter, even though my brother's not on Twitter. And I like
Uh huh.
rose slightly above my black sheep status in the family because at least I got that. Mark
Yeah.
Hamill wishes everybody a happy birthday. He's a joy.
Yeah.
And if everybody lived like Mark Hamill, the world would be a better place. And I would also
Right.
say that of you. I would say that of you as well. Is there something about the September 25th birthday that makes people extra good? Because it's also Michael Douglas's birthday and
Mhm.
Catherine Zeta
Chris-
Jones. A lot of
Christopher Reeve.
Christmas nookie babies are being born
Yeah.
this week, right? Christmas
Well,
nookie babies.
unfortunately, Will Smith put a check against us in the recents. But
Well, you can't have it all. I share my birthday
no,
with Melania. Like
sure.
I got Melania on this side, but I also got Carol Burnett and Channing Tatum.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
okay. I that balances. But it's one of those things. It's as the Indigo Girls say, it's only life after all.
That's
It's fine.
Is
It's
that what they
fine. I
say?
went to the doctor and I went to the mountain. Did you? Did you look
Right.
to the children and drink from the fountain?
Mm-hmm.
Or do men not do that? Do
I
men
refuse
not
to answer.
take heed?
No, I refuse to answer on the grounds that may incriminate me. But I have eaten their
Well,
ice
there's more
cream.
than one
And
answer to these questions.
that's right. I have eaten Indigo Girls ice cream in Atlanta. That's another conversation for another time. They have their own little ice cream shop in near Junkman's Daughter, which is my favorite shop in the Atlanta area.
I
Is in Buckhead.
loved Junkman's Daughter. I
It's
lived in
fucking
Georgia
great.
for 8 years, and Atlanta, when my family moved to Atlanta when I was in college and I was
Happy
trying
birthday,
to get
Wiffle
over
Poof.
the culture shock, my mom
Mhm.
was like, well, there's a part of Atlanta that's kind of like Greenwich Village. And I was
Mhm.
like, is it? But I eventually got to the point where I was completely in love with Little Five Points in Virginia Highlands and
Yeah.
spent the bulk of my time there. And when I wasn't in Athens, Georgia, at my actual doing college things, which
Yeah.
would be the next thing that I write about after this book, but which we'll talk about soon, I think. But
I insist.
Georgia is in and of itself its own sort of, like Florida is its own
Mhm.
country. Georgia has sort of become its own country, like, and Texas. But I had
Thank you for the love of
wonderful,
Paul McGrath.
wonderful
Nice and sincere.
experiences when I lived in Georgia. So
Yeah.
yay,
I
Junkman's Daughter.
I've been, I've been almost everywhere, almost twice in the country. There are a couple of states that have still eluded me, largely because they just don't have comedy clubs. Or if you do comedy there, it's like something people warn you off of. Like, okay, you can do Alaska, and they're very happy for you to be there, but it's a fucking nightmare. Or you can do
Well, you need to
Wyoming or
come
some
back
shit.
to Portland. You
I
need to come
insist.
back.
Oh, we'll do that. Well, that's my. So I set my New Year's goals every year on my birthday because it's my new year, God damn it. And so
Right.
I do my New Year's resolutions and my goal setting for the year. And interestingly enough, post COVID, my my goals got much smaller post COVID. They got much more practical, and because quite frankly, the reality of the circumstance was just so fucked, and there were so many variables that you couldn't count on that we're just now sort of kind of getting back to where you could start putting together a 5-year plan again where you might have some sort of scale on it. So I had a much bigger, yet last night I put together my goals for the year that are much bigger, and part of it is stomping grounds, going back to certain places and dragging John Fugelsang and Frangela to places that Steph doesn't want to go, so that we can all do some pre-election comedy for everybody. So
Yes,
it will,
please come
yeah,
here.
we'll make it happen. So that's on my list, and I've got a daily sort of strategy for that. But this year for me, like anybody cares, but this is
We care.
I
We're
I name
like there's like 1,000 people who care right now.
yes, I
At least.
name my like I will for my goals I will name the year. I will give it a kind of like nickname or a phrase so I can talk about it up to myself, going, what is this year about? Kind of like theming it. And this is the
Mhm.
year of learning dangerously. And the idea is that I'm going, there are a couple of things that I put off learning, that not because I'm scared of doing it or any of that shit, but quite frankly, just because the time allocation seemed outside of the possibility of the recent years, that every day was eaten up with so much stuff that the idea of shaving off an hour for 3 20-minute sections of learning every single morning, for example, was like, that's heavy lifting considering all the reading I do for the show and the prep for the show and the building of the show. And
Mhm.
now that it's by no means I will not stop fidgeting with my shit like I always do, but I'm now at a place where I can feel comfortable to, like, okay, it will be work, but it'll be worth it. So I have the way I learned Chinese, for example, was I had like a language arts morning 3 days a week, where I would just 20 minutes 3 days a week. I would just immerse or speak as much Chinese as I could in my own head, puttering around the kitchen before everybody gets up and all that kind of stuff. And then I would watch. I have a strategy. It won't work with my next language because my goal is to learn speakable Gaelic this year. Because I dusted my French up last year and it's pretty good. So I feel better about it. And again, I'm not learning from scratch, so that's something I can continually work on. But Gaelic, I'm
Mhm.
basically starting from scratch, and I can't use one of my finest tools, which is if you ever want to learn a foreign language, find a movie you already know, you love, you can quote verbatim, and then go find the translated versions of it, where
Mhm.
it's translated. If you want to learn French, go find the French dub of it, watch the movie with the translation turned off, and then watch it with the French subtitles at the same time they're speaking, so you can get used to seeing the words and reading and hearing the
Mhm.
words.
Yeah,
And then
immersion is the key.
yeah, and then
Full
watch it
immersion.
with and then watch it with the English subtitles and the French audio playing, and then watch it again in its English form, and then just repeat that. And if you do it over and over and over again, your brain just kind of locks into this. Oh, like I hear it, I understand it, I see it, I reflect on it when I hear it, and it's words I'm comfortable with because I know the sentiment of what's being said because I like this movie and I like what these characters are saying.
Mhm.
One of the first Chinese phrases I learned to say was "我追的就是警察抓在路." Whoops, we lost her. I speak Chinese and she vanishes. No, there she is. Okay.
Sorry, my mom just called because I forgot to put
Ah,
on my do not disturb. God damn it. Are we
that's
am I
no.
here?
You're here.
Am
You're
I
good.
here?
You're good.
Can you
You're
I
good.
can't see you anymore. Shit. I
I can
forgot to
see
put on
you.
my do not disturb. That's so
It's okay.
typical of me. Sorry. I
That's
can't
okay.
see you though.
Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you, but I can't see
Okay.
you. God
Well,
damn it.
I look exactly the same. So, anyways,
Okay, great.
the phrase I was saying when your mom called was 我追的就是警察抓在路. And that means um, I really feel that cops belong on the street. And the phrase comes from an action movie called Flashpoint that Donnie Yen did, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, I like his accent and his way of speaking. So I was like, I'm going to lock into that as my accent for Chinese. I have a Mandarin. I have a very Beijing accent with a lot of hard R's on it and shit like that. But I was like, I need to loosen up a little bit. So I learned that phrase because I just thought it was hilarious and totally useless in normal conversation. You're never gonna want. It's like Steve Martin's thing about omelette du fromage. The only thing I could remember was
From
omelette du
it's like those
fromage.
French have a different
Different
word for
word for
everything.
everything. Yeah, chapeau means hat. Ouf means egg. It's like those
That
French have a
means
different word for it.
egg.
Right. It was the
And then he
same kind
brings
of
you a
thing.
shoe with cheese on it. One of my
Yeah.
favorite routines of all time.
Yeah. And Slayer chick. 是啊，我会说中文。普通话. I speak the people's language. 普通话,
The
Mandarin.
people's language.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for
I
you. It's good to
Thanks.
do new things that scare you that you thought that you would never do,
Well, the
or
reason
things
this
that
is
you've been
harder,
putting off, or
yeah,
things that are
I could find
not
Arabic
easy.
movies, I can find Russian movies, I could find even Ukrainian movies where I could learn the language by doing that. But finding fucking Gaelic movies is going to be next to fucking impossible. I'm like stuck with like 6 Enya songs, to listen to. But kitty cat. So, anyways,
Yes. They're
I
happening right here.
literally, it is going to be just dedicated old fashioned learning, and I might just find like on YouTube find like speakers speaking because that'll be the next best thing, and see if there's a AI translation of it into English or whatever. Yeah, Gaelic subtitles don't help. The way they anglicize it is terrible
Mm,
because
mhm.
they don't make any sense. So, anyways,
Right.
but the idea of the year of learning dangerously is the stuff that's just kind of like really outside my comfort zone as far as available means in that, and so I don't tell my goals, like all of them, to everybody.
Mhm.
I used to subscribe to that, like state your goals out loud, let your friends know them so they can keep you honest about them. But
Right.
at a certain point, my goals got so enormous that my friends thought I was a dick. You know what I mean? Like where you're like, at a certain
Yes, I
point,
know. I honestly, I actually know exactly what you mean. And what's great is
right?
I literally just experienced that this month. This month has been a
Yeah,
month of like 2.5 weeks ago. I self-published my book, which is something I swore I would never do because
awesome.
I thought I needed the protection of a real publishing deal. And there was a lot of things I thought I needed around that. And in 1 week, I had several different friends kind of give me a verbal shoulder shake and say, here's what you're doing.
Mhm.
You can't bully people into giving you work. You can't
Yeah.
shame people into giving you a job. You can't make people publish you. You can't do this. And I'm tired of going to your Facebook and seeing this negative, this negative, this negative,
Mhm.
instead of here's an accomplishment. I'm ready to
Right.
show the world. And so I had my ass handed to me over and over and over again. And instead of getting defensive and instead of getting angry, because one of my friends literally called me and she's like, she was yelling at me. And she was
Right.
like, I'm saying this with love. We love you. Your friends
Yeah.
love you. Instead of being all like, "Bah, bah," I said, thank you. And I
Mhm.
received every word of criticism with gratitude and
Great.
grace and sat with it and said, what am I going to do with this? So instead of sitting in the no agents want to represent me, wow, I was like, fuck it. And so I self published my book. And
Right.
I mean, I've only sold 51 copies. Okay. 51 copies in less than 2 weeks.
That's a
I've
start.
made less than $200 on it, but the reviews so far, I could cry. I got a review today from a reader, and she wrote, it's on my Twitter right now, which, yes, I'm still on Twitter, and I will be there until there's nothing left. But the review she wrote, she really got it. And it fills me with hope that other
Mhm.
people will find my book and then want it to be the streaming series that I can see in my head. And now that the WGA has hopefully reached the end of the strike, and then hopefully SAG-AFTRA will, like, we could make this a thing. But
Right.
right now I can't pay my rent, Hal. And so, like, right
Yeah.
now I'm all in the gratitude of, I
Yeah.
am so grateful that I have enough people who love me and care about me, who are invested in my success, who are like, here's what you're gonna do
Yeah.
until you get to here. And so, like, I don't want to do phone sales, but I will. I don't want to keep looking for restaurant work, but I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to keep chasing people for writing work until somebody says, here's money, relax. We're going to adapt. We're going to option this. We're going to go forward. So, like, I'm trying really, like, these cats get hungry all the time and they need to eat. And so do I.
Yes, they do.
So, but like, I'm not begging anymore. Like, I want to work for this. So, like, here I am. Here's my book. I won't get any of the money that I've made for like 2.5 months or something,
Sure,
but
yeah.
I want to work for this, right? I want to
Right.
earn this. I want to, like, I should be like, all of these bullshit writing takes that happened over the last 2 weeks, like that crap about Martin Short and the bad takes on Joe Biden. And
Right.
Taylor Swift is that woman who wrote the thing about Taylor Swift, who literally wrote the words, why does anybody like her? Like a fucking MAGA mean girl. Like, what is
Right.
wrong with you? That's journalism now? I don't think it is. And by the way, I have a lot of reasons to like Taylor Swift. Why don't you pay me to write about those? And also, what and the every garbage take that is out there right now.
Yeah.
You're like that woman who wrote at least Donald Trump is still knows how to dress. A what now? A
Huh?
what now? The guy can't tie a fucking tie.
Right. It's amazing to me
He
is that
wears balloon hammer pants. What is wrong with you? His
he
belt
wears
is up
lifts.
here.
He wears
Style
lifts.
icon.
Yeah, he's over 6 feet tall and he wears lifts. Do you know how
And the makeup
fucking
and the hair. What a
do you know
style
how
icon.
weak
Okay,
you have to
Kathleen.
be? Do you know how weak you have to be to wear lifts when you're over 6 feet tall? For fuck's sake.
You're never going to be as tall as Barron. Give it up.
Yeah, right. Or his father.
And he's jealous of his own
Um,
child. So disgusting to be jealous of your own child. How weak.
I don't know. The security
How
guard
weak.
the security guard at the Tiffany's in the first floor of Trump Tower is a tall fucking guy. He's very
He's a
tall.
good-looking man.
He's a
Striking,
good-looking guy. He's very
one
tall.
might say.
Yeah, some people
Why
say.
would he be jealous of Barron? I just can't think of it. Anyway.
I don't know. So
it just goes in with the narcissism.
where, by the way, where's the link for how do we send people to your book?
They go to, well, there's a link in my bio on Twitter. If you search it on Amazon, it's still kind of hard to find, but I did pay for a week of ads with no money.
Sure.
There's a link in my bio on Twitter. It's called The Sound of Settling. I did send you what the cover looks like. It's on the Kindle. There's a paperback version, which apparently isn't like the ideal printing method because Amazon made a mistake when they uploaded my file and they can't fix it or refuse to. I don't know what the issue is, but consider it a collector's item if you bought that one, because eventually I believe, and we're manifesting a mass market paperback to go along
Yes,
with
we
the
are.
eventual streaming series. So I got Lisa Ann Walter reading it right now because there's a part
Great.
in it for her. And Ellen Barkin wants a copy because there's a part in it for her. There's a part in it for Mark Hamill if you want. There's a part in it for you, Hal. There's a part
I
in
think
it for...
I'd make a great
So,
Dave Grohl. I just have to get some teeth extensions, but I'd be fine.
I'm sorry. Okay, so first of all, it's not exactly Dave Grohl. And secondly, I hate to tell you this, but you're
I'm not exactly Dave Grohl. I'm perfect. Huh?
You're perfect to play a different part, but the characters in my book are in their early 30s because it takes place in 2001 to 2006, and that's the age that I was in. Honestly, it's the old...
Have you seen 30-year-olds right now? I look way better than they do.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it, but I have a specific part in mind for you, actually. I do.
The old manager. These kids are going to be rock stars one day.
Not old, but just not
oldish.
Well, we'll figure it out. Maybe actually you'll be the...
It's a good day. It's my birthday.
The label president.
No, it's a good day. It's a good day. It's a good day.
You'll be the label president. You'll be the wise label president sitting behind the desk. Like Mike Myers in Bohemian Rhapsody, but smart.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was about to say the dumbest person in the history of music. By the way,
do you think kids will be riding in the cars, banging their heads? That was very funny. I thought that was very funny. But anyway,
do you know? By the way, for the record, for the record, that was the same guy who didn't want them to put Another One Bites the Dust on a record as well. Never learned his fucking lesson. And you know who talked him into it? You know who talked him into it? You know what massive star talked the label into putting Another One Bites the Dust on the actual album because they weren't going to let him put it on there? Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson called that dude on behalf of Freddie and said,
"That's fucking awesome.
That song's going to be a hit. It needs to be on there." So there.
Why are the people in charge? Because the people in charge don't want to listen to the people who know what we're talking about. There goes a cat. Like my former bosses on my former radio station who blocked me on Facebook. It's like, I'm so sorry that the truth of what I can help you make money on is bothering you. If I was a man, you would have hired me back already. But I've released that. I have released that also.
If you were a man, if you were a man, your sour words and criticisms would have taken physical form, and they would have a restraining order against you. It'd be different because
no. Actually, I would have a better career than Lars Larson or Tom Hartman or any man that has a nationally broadcasted syndicated radio talk show. I just would. Or I'd still at least be on the air here locally in Portland, sharing music with people I love. And there's, this desire here for the return of peak Portland in the early 2000s when I was on the air. And, maybe they'll get their heads out of their asses.
All you need is a new mayor and an entire new city council.
By the way, I need to thank you because the last time I was on your show 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. We talked about the fact that Ted Wheeler's not running for mayor again and that I suggested Viva Las Vegas, who is a professional exotic dancer and one of the most brilliant women I know. And then so one of your listeners contacted Viva. Viva reached out to me. She is seriously considering a run for mayor. She's already talking to people who have done the same, people who are locally involved in politics. And she and I have a coffee scheduled for mid-October because if she runs, I'm joining her team. I'm in some way or another. It's not going to pay my October rent.
It's what I do.
We are planting the seeds now because I'm telling you right now, she would get a shit ton of votes. She'd be amazing. She'd be amazing. So thank you. And so thank you for that. So you make magic happen. So if you can make magic happen,
I promise to only use my powers for good.
Well, and that's what I want to do too. I want to use my connectivity to spread joy and inspire people to read. So reading is fundamental, friends, spreading the love and spreading the joy. So if everybody who's watching would either, buy the book or share the book or share my Substack or drop $1 or $2 into my Venmo, then I can continue this path of getting my book out into the world. Thank you. And I'm happy to send you a copy of the book so that you can read it and recommend it for real.
Oh, no.
For real.
You don't have to send me one.
My birthday gift to you.
Nope. I'll get my own copy. Thank you. I have a rule about that. I do not, I do not, when people put out an album or a book, that there are a lot of folks. Oh, thank you so much, John, and thanks everybody for the super chats today. It's lovely. I don't want you guys to think that in mid conversation I'm not noticing them. I totally am, and I love you for that. Thank you. If a friend puts out an album or a book or any of that stuff, or has a movie, I buy my own ticket. I go on my own. I get the copy of the record myself. I order the vinyl. I get the book itself because I want to contribute in that way as well. I don't, if somebody's asking me to write the foreword, they can send me the galleys and I'll read it ahead of time or whatever. But then and they can send me a copy because I wrote for it. But other than that, I buy my own copy of it. I just think that's important. I think it's, and that's why I'm like, if your favorite band is coming to town, buy a ticket. If you can't go, give it to somebody else that you think would like it. Like if you everybody would be helped if we kind of did that sort of pay it forward on stuff anyways.
As long as you can afford it.
Right. Yeah. If you have the means. I was about to say that.
Yeah,
if you have the means.
For sure.
Because especially for those who don't, right? And it helps artists and people who make our living on, again, in the amorphous world of creativity, which is in itself a struggle that is kind of analogous to nothing except in contrast. Because again, like I use this analogy a lot, but like if you're assigned to dig a ditch for a job and they go, this ditch has to be 3 feet wide and 6 feet deep and 9 feet long by the end of, by Wednesday. By Wednesday, you can tell. They can come out with a measuring tape and they can go, yep, 9 feet long, 6 feet deep, 3 feet wide. Good job. Mm-hmm. Off you go. But with creativity in any form, there is no measurement. It is all up for grabs. Somebody could come up and you could spend all your time digging this ditch and they could come up and say, oh my God, this is the Grand Canyon. This is 9,000 feet long. It is one of the 7 wonders of the world. And somebody else could say, that's a fucking puddle. Who's next? And that's just the reality of living in the creative world. It's what creates, I think, a lot of the anxiety for people that they do have, that they get personal about that level of, of what they think is like rejection. And that's why I don't believe in it. I don't believe that the industry is full of rejection because there are too many moving parts. It couldn't possibly be me. So
I think everything that can find an audience if it's done well. And even if it's not done that well, there's an audience for schlock movies. There's an audience for, there's an audience for everything. And I think if you can find your niche and be successful in it, and that makes you happy and you can get a little money from it as well. Like again, I don't need to be Oprah financially, but like, I just want to pay the rent. I just need enough. And it's also a lot. Well, I mean, yeah, that'd be great because of all of the things that I could do with, if I had millions of dollars, I think about all of the philanthropic stuff I could do for other people. Absolutely. Like all the time. But,
there's I'm going to stop you right there and give you this kind of piece of like, this will be my equivalent of the shoulder shake for you. Too many good people caveat their way out of riches and seed the ground of people getting rich to assholes who won't do that kind of stuff. We just assume that area, the area of being rich and having massive influence, but for a couple of rare instances, is for the realm of just douchebags and stuff like that. And I think it's partly because we seed the ground. I don't have to. And we do this humility tap dance that moves us out of the ranking of getting to that part. When I would argue we would be exactly the right people to shepherd that kind of wealth and do some good with it in the world. Whereas, and it's not like there's always going to be rich people. There are always going to be people who maximize their wealth and all this kind of stuff. And if we go, that's the realm of douchebags, I think that's a mistake. And so I would like us to model. You were talking about Jimmy Carter earlier. If we all modeled ourselves after the way he lived his life, I think we'd all be better off on the entire planet because but I also think again, what was about him though? Hold on. What was the important thing about him? He became president of the United States. He was a governor and then president. And that is in and of itself, from a political standpoint, the ultra wealthy. Like if you're using an analogy of like wealth to political power, becoming president of the United States is the top, right? That's up there. So he as a human being didn't just do what he does now without without that, he's the former governor of Georgia and also ran for the governor of Georgia, who builds houses, and isn't that lovely? But the fact that he achieved being president means that him hammering in nails in a poor person's house to make it happen gives it more weight, and again becomes an icon for the rest of us behavior for him. Here was a man who was leader of the free world, and he is spending his post-presidency time building houses and caring for people. That in and of itself, he had to get to the top of that political mountain for it to have the same impact. You know what I mean? If he'd have just ceded to like, assholes become president, I'm not going to become president, I'm just going to be the humble peanut farmer from Georgia. No, I got news for you. There's tons of farmers who also build houses for other people, and they're lovely human beings, but they're not, through their example, convincing other people to do it.
Right. He was he is. I mean, he's still with us. I lived in Albany, Georgia, which is not that far from Plains. And for a time back in my former life, when I was married to a doctor and was raising my older son, and we were friends in Albany. Our realtor, actually, her husband was one of Jimmy Carter's personal Secret Service detail. And so he had lots of stories. I mean, just about how good of a human being he is, and how he went out of his way to show kindness to others. And really, we've talked about faith, and I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that if someone's faith actually informs their life and makes them a better human being, great. That's a not yucking somebody's yum for me, right? And he lives his life in the way that he preaches, speaks about his faith. He lives his faith,
right?
And his kindness. He leads with his kindness. And my favorite story that I heard about Jimmy Carter, and a lot of people have shared videos of him doing this, anytime he would be on a commercial flight, he would go around before the plane took off and shake hands with every single person and say, hello, I'm Jimmy Carter. Nice to meet you. And go around and meet everybody so that they wouldn't come up and bother him during the flight. Like, he gave them their moment, and then it was understood. Now he's to be left to live his life as you were living yours.
Right.
And it's about coexisting. And that is really, to me, the essence of what humans should be doing and teaching each other, is not who's superior, not because this one has money or this one is physically bigger or this one is smarter or whatever. It's not about domination. It should be about coexisting. And I think if you watch his example rather than Donald Trump's, because Donald Trump's is about domination and control rather than coexisting. That's the example, right? If you take no other takeaway from a life well lived, like the Carters, it really is about being a decent human and spreading, when they literally worked for an organization with the word humanity in it. So, like, look, my favorite
story.
That.
Yeah. My favorite Jimmy Carter story is the fucking Chalk River meltdown, where he teamed out how to stop a reactor from melting down, exposed himself to thousands of times the safe level of radiation, to the point where he pissed radioactive for days after. They could only go in 90-second shifts. So he would, they had to chart this thing out, like, everybody, you guys go in, you do this one thing, and you get the fuck out, and then you go in, and we'll go in, and and he strategized this entire thing. It was 6 months. He had radioactive urine. He had
I don't know this story. This is amazing.
You don't know this?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm a genius, but I don't know everything about everything.
Yeah. So Jimmy Carter, in 1952, there was I think it was in Ottawa, if I'm remembering right, is in Canada, that they had a reactor that was melting down, and he had worked on a nuclear submarine and had an experience with, these kind of issues up close, and was part of effectively a response team they put together to deal with this meltdown that was happening. And he came in with his team of naval soldiers, and they had to the process of it was they had to go in and like multiple stages to keep this thing from melting down. And so they could only be exposed because of the gear they had for 90 seconds, a minute and a half. Otherwise they would start to die. And so they had protective gear on and all this stuff, but it would only protect him up that long. So he came up with this strategy where they would just rotate everybody in to the point where, and he stayed in there longer than anybody. He was like the last step in it, I think, and or one of the major ones, and it took him a little longer than that 90 seconds, but he was in there and he just kept at it till it was done, and then he got out and then next team, and then, but it was his plan, and he stopped this meltdown, essentially. He was the guy who was in charge of making sure it didn't happen. Just a beautiful fucking human being.
Yeah. Maybe that helped him live all of these years. We don't know.
Yeah, and that
that's the fountain of youth, ironically. No, yes. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, he was
don't go radiate yourself. Don't do that.
No. Okay. But I mean, honest to God, like genuine heroism. And let's understand. 1952, nobody knows shit. The arc of like nuclear capability and stuff, they knew the physics of it, but not what the response to the human body would be. It's random, so there's no way to full on measure it. And at that time, the gear that they had was, like the equivalent to wearing like a diving bell. It was just like clunky and shitty, and they weren't even 100% sure. They couldn't make fabrics. Now you can 3D print all kinds of stuff. And and protect yourself from space radiation. All this is pre-moon landing, pre-Gemini, pre-Apollo, all that shit. And the fact that we now know, looking back, it worked. They were able to do it. That wasn't necessarily guaranteed by any fucking stretch.
Right?
They could have been in there, any of them, all of them, everybody on that team, including Carter himself. Even if he wasn't down in the doing the work, if it had gone south, everybody there's dead.
Yeah.
And they knew it. They were all standing there for hours and hours working this shit out, knowing that, something could go wrong that could kill them then. They could die from their wounds later. They could be exposed to radiation that would kill them later. Some of the team did. And they could also, if it went south, they're all at the epicenter of it. They're fucked.
Right.
We know now, looking back, and people forget psychologically how often we do this thing where, looking back, we assume that it worked out the way it worked out, or that it was going to, and it never was. Anything you ever hear like this, I want you to remember it could have gone south at any fucking second.
At any time. Yeah.
Any second. And that in and of itself is like the harrowing moments. I'm always amazed when they make a movie like about something like this, like Oppenheimer or something. They're like, it's a 3-hour movie that takes place over a couple of years. When these motherfuckers could have made a 2-hour movie about one instance around the nuclear, bomb being set up, where it might have gone, and in that made it an analogy for the whole fucking thing, the whole process of creating nuclear weapons or nuclear reactors. And it had every tension moment, every character moment, everything within that, in those 2 hours of just real life, real time, like 24, like the show 24, where that would be enough, right? But they are like, we got to show him when he's a kid going, I wish my Lincoln logs were made out of uranium. You're like, oh, who gives a rat fuck?
I haven't seen it. I've only seen the Barbie half of the Barbieheimer. So
sure. Understood.
I also heard that there was like prolonged sex scenes in Oppenheimer, and I was just like, nah, I don't need to.
But
I don't need to see that.
It's just one of those things where, and I think this is good for all of us on my birthday, which of course is a national holiday. It's the Stoic Optimism holiday. Today we reinstitute our pledge to Stoic Optimism. One foot in front of the other,
covered in frosting, all the frosting.
If that's your idea of a good time, we don't yuck anybody's yum on Hal's birthday. That's not how it works.
You get all the cake today. You get all the cake you want with zero judgment.
All the cake I have is I'm gonna have one slice of red velvet. That's what I want, and then I'm gonna have oysters.
Just one?
We're going for oysters. Yeah,
go for it. I
don't know why, but I'm craving them today. I think it's because it's one of those animals you can eat them from the rooter to the tutor in one slurp. If you're gonna eat an animal, eat the whole thing. Don't waste it.
Hey, I took my mom to the Oregon coast the other day, and she ordered oysters at lunch, and she was just so happy because they were probably in the ocean like 4 hours before she ate them.
Right.
So
that's Oregon. It's interesting. Oregon's got some great ones.
We still have the Oregon coast. Yeah. Yes. We still have the Oregon coast, despite what you might think is happening in Portland. The Oregon coast still exists and is still magnificent. So maybe we can make our escape there someday. I don't know.
Yeah.
When the
Well,
rest of Portland collapses.
No, I'm going to build an island lair on the Farallon Islands.
Okay.
Off of
Ooh, surrounded by great white sharks. No one
That's
will get
right.
us. That's
That's
awesome.
right. Yeah, lava rock, super sharp. Nobody can run. Even if somebody tries to run up on us, they won't be able to. Everybody who visits will get special shoes.
Love it.
And we'll put laser beams on the sharks. It's going to happen. Yeah,
I'm ready.
Bellingham,
I'm fucking
Washington
ready.
oysters are
Let's
great.
go.
Yeah. People in the chat room are going like yummy, yummy.
Oh,
Like
oysters!
eating
You
little
want if you can get yourself some? Can you get knee tarts out in there in landlocked Las Vegas? Because knee
It
tarts are
depends. Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
Those are great
Yeah.
oysters. I worked. There was a time when I was working in the service industry pre-pandemic, and I worked at a place. I worked for a restaurant group here. They had a steakhouse and a fish house, and I
Mm,
worked at the fish house. And boy, did I learn more about oysters than I ever wanted to learn.
right.
So I could give you chapter and verse on why Blue Pointer's better than this, and this is this.
Mhm.
I
All
don't want to
right.
be in the service. Dude, by the way, since July
Yes.
25th, which is when the last day I worked a real job,
Uh-huh.
I can't get a job in the service industry in Portland because they look at your resume that doesn't have any dates on it, and then you have to fill out an application where you have to put your birth date, and they're like, hard pass, bye-bye, oldie. So that's an
There's
issue.
not
So
a
that I
there's
can't
not a
I can't
weird
even use this
bookstore that
knowledge.
smells like patchouli. There's not a patchouli bookstore nearby that needs somebody to fend off psychos who wander into the store as a.
I probably could get myself a cashier gig at Powell's if I have
I
to. But
think
then it
so.
means dealing with the public. I'm better in here. I'm better if I don't see that
That's
door.
true. Yeah,
It's
that's
really
true.
better if that front door almost
See,
never
I don't think that's an
opens.
option. See, that's the thing. I think there's a thing I always avoided as much as I can in my life, and that is what I call the tyranny of options. If you're
Uh-huh.
and it is very difficult and this is not a brag, this is a reality. That highly skilled and highly intelligent people who could do almost anything will often get very scattered in that because almost anyone could shame you into taking almost any job because you could do it. You could get away with it. You could actually create, a place for yourself in almost any job that exists because you're capable and you
That is
pick it up
true.
very quickly and you're good, in a pinch. And if there's a real crisis and you know the details of where you work, you could probably solve it. I've lived my entire life that way. I've been like, my main career outside of entertainment was always troubleshooter. And you could argue
Yeah.
that there's a certain point that comedy is troubleshooting of the human social experience. You know
Yes.
what I mean? That's kind of what it's for, right?
I
But if
like to
you,
I think I'm an idea person and I like to
Mhm.
come up with
I'm an
solutions and
idea man,
just
Chuck.
people
Uh,
people don't
Hold
people
on.
don't like to listen to my ideas unfortunately, and people have made money for
Feed,
my ideas without me getting the money for it.
yeah.
So I'm gonna stop giving
Feed
my ideas away.
mayonnaise
And
to the tuna. Call Starkist. Sorry, it's a Billy Blaze reference.
pretty sure still that Dave Grohl owes me a hell of a lot of money because if I didn't say to him, if you don't write, you need to write me a song that's just as good as Heroes, and then he wrote Times Like These. So it's fine.
I
If I
agree.
ever get back in touch with him, I'll be like, maybe you want to flip me a couple bucks. I don't know. I have
Yeah,
great ideas.
I
It's
think
fine.
he's got a couple
It's
bucks.
all you
I
think?
here's the thing. I'm one of these folks, and this is I've always been ice skating uphill my whole life. Like many people know, I call the '90s the Sisyphus years. But moving from
Yes.
Kentucky to Chicago was like completely madness. Just the amount of culture shock. But I dove into it, and once I made that decision, because I would have rather lived with my mom if in general, but I couldn't stand Kentucky anymore. I had to get the fuck out, or I was going to die there. I felt it. That I
Mhm.
was like, I'm going to go live with dad, not because of you, but because of this place. I will suffocate here. I'm just watching, I'm 14 years old and I'm watching kids around me start drinking and blowing off the rest of their life. Already, I can't do this. The world's too fucking big. And I don't know if you know this. Um, so my aunt and uncle, my Uncle Phil, who I was talking about earlier, he met my Aunt Sophie, who's Belgian, in Germany when the wall was still up. She was on
Mhm.
the east side of the wall. He was on the west side of the wall, and he would transport stuff back and forth. He was working for the army at that point, and she was teaching and she spoke French and German, but she didn't speak English. And he spoke German and English, but he didn't speak French. So they fell in love speaking German, which is in and of itself a fucking amazing. That amazes me that anybody can
Because it's
fall
the
in love.
least romantic language.
It's rough. If you don't know, English is a non-inflective Indo-European language that comes basically through French and German and fuses together. And all the ugly words are German, and all the pretty words are French. So poop is French, shit is German. That's how it works. So but they fell in love this way. And my uncle Phil used to sneak magazines to her because she couldn't get them to the eastern side of the wall in his trouser legs. He would tape like Life magazine and that kind of stuff. And he would go over there and he would sneak her magazines and this stuff. And one day, some guys from the CIA came and they said, they know what you're doing. And the next time you go through, they're going to kill you. So we got to move you home. And he goes, well, I'm not leaving without her. And they go, okay, we'll tell you what, we'll work out something where she can bring something of yours, temporary day pass, but she's got to know she's not going back. Not there anyways. Her family's in Belgium, so they're fine. But her life in Germany is over if she comes through the wall. And he spoke to her on what was effectively the closest thing they could have to a secured line, and they did it. They rigged it so she could bring some books, that belonged to the school over to the army base there, and she never went home. And they, lived in Nashville. She passed away about a decade ago now, but she taught French at Vanderbilt. And he taught English at Nashville Tech, and language is their life, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because of my Aunt Sophie, I spoke, passable French a good portion of my life because my cousin Jerome and my other cousin Brigitte, while they grew up here, spoke French in their household to their mom all the time, and they speak great French still to this day. Brigitte's probably better than Jerome's at this point, but they're still fluent. And so because of that, French was the only class I got an A in my last year of school in Kentucky. So I did my freshman year in Kentucky, and when I moved to Chicago, they nullified all my credits except band because my school was so substandard. They thought it was ass. So like, you got to start from scratch. We're not taking any of those. So I basically started over. But because I was doing so well in French, it was the only I was a D and C student because I was a fuck around and I was bored, and I was too busy being funny, and as you do, and
As of course,
yeah, I got an A in French every time because it was easy, and especially the oral part of it, I was able to speak very well. And they had a trip that those school trips where you go to Europe, where you like high school trips, and
mm-hmm.
they gave out scholarships where you had to pay half price. It wouldn't be as much as everybody else, and we were too poor for me to go, but I got half price on it. My grandparents picked up the other half, so they paid for the other half of it. So me and I think this kid Brian Spizak, he also got one. But we went to France, and I was like the kid who could speak the most French of everybody in the class. So I was like a pig in shit. We were having a great time. The only time I was like in Kentucky anyways, like the social leader of that particular pyramid of kids. But we went to Paris and Nice and Nimes and Avignon and Versailles.
Oh, Nimes.
And we went to Monaco. Monaco was the last place we went. And it was all overwhelming and beautiful and everything, and it was exciting. And I bought a switchblade and I put it inside my toothpaste tube to sneak it back into the country because you can't bring them back in. So you put them in the toothpaste tube because they were lead at the time, and it would hide it in the X-ray machine. So I still have it. It's in a box at my mom's house. Yes, Monaco had topless beaches. That was a big part of it. But also, the big point of it is that when we arrived, we pulled into the sort of center of town in Monaco, and it looks like a fucking Bond film. If you've ever seen in the Bond films where he's playing Baccarat in fucking Monaco, it's cobblestone and Maseratis and fucking richness, fucking rich everywhere. And I had never had a new pair of jeans in my life, and I had one pair of shoes a year. Until I started growing, and then I had one pair of shoes till they finished. And they stopped in the middle of town, and it was just dusk. We arrived. It was just gorgeous. I'll never forget that. It was just gorgeous. And they said, you got 2 hours. You guys roam around, look around, and then meet us at the steps of this museum, and we're all going to go and we'll check into the hotel and go to the museum. Which is funny because you're just going to let a bunch of fucking high school students out of your sight. You know, this is hilarious. Talk about Gen X. And everybody ran off to do shit. They went off to buy souvenirs and whatever. And I was just so fucking overwhelmed by the glorious architecture and there was this, they had a little like garden down in the center of this like walkable park that had steps going down on all four corners, and then these hedges, and they were all perfectly trimmed, and it looked like Marie Antoinette's fucking, backyard. And I sat down on the steps and sobbed.
Oh.
Just like the hardest cry I had ever had up to that point. I was just, and I was by myself, thank God, because I wouldn't want to have to explain it to anybody. But I was just, because I knew I couldn't go home. I knew I couldn't be here and then go back to Peekskill, Kentucky and live in Frankfurt and do whatever the fuck. And that was that. I couldn't do it. And that meant leaving my mom and my sister and moving to live with my dad, or running away, or whatever it was going to be difficult. It was going to be the worst pain. And I just gutted myself on those steps because I was just, for the first time in my life, and this is an ongoing thing with me, I was panicked by the beauty of life. I was just overwhelmed. And I'm like, I can't let the rest, there's this world out here, and I'm never going to see the rest of that, because what the fuck? If this is out here, imagine, what else there is to see, and to not do it, and to hide away, and to, retreat, which is what it felt like, back into my life in Kentucky, felt like a death sentence.
Yeah.
And so I made up my mind at that moment to tell my mom. Dad had just moved to Chicago, and he's like, if you want to live up here, there's a really good high school up here if you want to go. And my dad rented a guest house for half the rent that they were charging for it, because he promised to that he and I would remodel it while we lived there for the family that owned it. So we lived behind this family on Woodland Avenue, 329 and a half Woodland Avenue was my address, near my school. And I walked 4 blocks to New Trier in the fucking snow and sleet and the Chicago wind and the beautiful autumn summers, the Indian summers, and the hot sweltering summer. Every day I walked to school. I got to walk to school in Chicago because I made that decision. But that decision fucking hurt. And it had to do with, I'm going to, the idea of letting this slip away, the extraordinary beauty that exists out there, architecture, and especially because my dad's an architect, so he was very much into this and kind of ingrained that into me. That I was not going to experience this seemed an impossibility. I will not. It was a life-changing moment, no fucking question. And
That's brilliant that you knew yourself well enough at that age to know that if you denied yourself that chance, that you might not make it.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a buddy named Mark Leffel who, I had like 4 kids, 4 like running buddies that I had, Tammy Tracy and Bernice Payton and Mark Leffel and my buddy Kurt Troutwine, who passed away earlier this year. And Kurt was my best friend, but we had a running group of guys that we play with who were in my Boy Scout troop and all that kind of stuff. And Mark died on graduation night in the same graduating class that I would have been a part of. They were all drunk, and they went, and there's by the governor, where Mitch McConnell's office is in the Capitol. The governor's mansion is right next to the Capitol. It's right there. It's like the preacher's house at a church. It's like on the lawn of the Capitol. It's just over to the right. And there's a big parking garage thing that they built off the Capitol much later, because there's like a hill that runs off the side. It's very steep because Kentucky's very hilly. And they built this structure just straight out with these, like 3 levels of parking, and then it just a huge drop off to the ground that's held up with these like bridge-like pillars. And the thing was, like in Lost Boys, the thing was go out there and hang off the side of it and see who could hang on the longest without chickening out. And Mark lost his grip. And he fell to his death and was hit by 2 cars before anybody even knew what had happened. Now he was gone the second he hit the ground. And he was in my scout troop. Like, I knew that kid most of my life. And he, and his friends were drinking when I was in, 8th grade. And I was like, nope. Sorry. Nope. Not me. I'm not going out like that. And, and that, again, we have these markers in our lives.
There are cautionary tales that pop up as life lessons, and maybe they're delivered in the most brutal way so that you'll pay attention and that you'll avoid that. I mean, where I went to high school, grew up in New Jersey, in suburban New Jersey, and it was not cool to be smart. It was cooler to be a doy and like go party. And 9 girls in my graduating class got pregnant. I mean, it's just the cautionary tales all over.
I was not in town, by the way.
You were what?
I was not in town during that period of time when those 9 girls. I was nowhere.
You weren't in Jersey. You weren't in Hazlitt, New Jersey in 1987.
No,
Are
not
you sure?
As far as you know, guy. The guy. No. That was another guy wearing a fake mustache. It wasn't me. Can't
With
get
the
me
mullet.
because the rabbit done. Yeah. And somebody said it, in the chat room.
That was
straight edge makes sense now, and yes, that is definitely what informed it. This is not because my parents drank to excess or I was in an abusive alcoholic situation at all. It was simply referential.
Right.
It was simply like,
if your experience of that is all negative, why would you even want to dip a toe? Like, you have always struck me as someone who is so fascinated by the reality we live in that there's no need for you to alter your consciousness.
Nope.
There's just not.
No.
You don't have any reason. You have no curiosity to go there, which I think is really interesting. And the only thing that I think would be fascinating when it comes to you specifically and the way you see the world and the way your brain works is if you ever consider doing MDMA therapy, because I've done it twice and it's fucking life-changing. But that's only if you're someone. For me, honestly, Hal, for someone who has this brain that doesn't shut the fuck up ever.
Sure.
For me, it was an incredibly, and if I could afford it, like I was able to do it at a time where I had 2 jobs and I had some extra money, and it was a friend of mine who was my guide, and we did a lot of heavy work together, and he's someone I've known for a decade. So he gave me like what he considers a deep discount, which was still a lot of money. But you do all of this intake, and then you decide what it is that you want to accomplish. But what MDMA does, and this isn't, like you're not going to a rave in a warehouse where some dude's like, here, take this. It's medicine. He's trained. He's a guide.
Sure.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
What it does is it silences your amygdala, and it lets you face traumatic things that may have happened to you in childhood or at another time, where your inner healer / inner protector keeps that inner child away so that it's protected from dealing with the things that are scary. And because I was able, for me, this is just my experience, but I really encourage anyone who even has a curiosity, watch How to Change Your Mind on Netflix, get into it, see if it's right for you, because it definitely was for me. It lets you go back to a traumatic experience and look at it with some objectivity. It removes the emotion and fear so that you can go back and say, oh my God, oh, so that's what happened. Okay, you're safe, you're protected, you can learn this about yourself, and then it can inform the way you then engage outwardly. And after just 2 sessions, I was able to become a little bit more pragmatic in the way that I was looking at the job that I was doing, because writing about politics takes a lot out of you
Sure.
emotionally,
Mhm.
and it does take its toll. And there's a way to restore yourself that's healthy, and then there's ways to restore yourself that are unhealthy.
Right.
And I chose to find ways that were healthy, because I mean, I can smoke weed and that's fine. It's a gift from the earth, yada, yada. But
Yeah,
I
just
don't
like
want to be
poison
stoned
ivy and lava.
24/7. Right, sure. But I don't want to be stoned 24/7. I have to
Sure.
function, I have to live. And I have to also be able to accept hard truths about myself,
Mhm.
things that I can approve about myself, things that I can work on regarding my other relationships, things that are not solved, but at least I have the capacity to handle them so much better. And I will tell you that if I had not done those two journeys, that when 2 weeks ago my friends came at me and said, "You're doing this and you're doing this and you don't realize you're doing this," I
Mhm.
had the capacity to be able to take a step back and go, "Oh, I wasn't aware I was doing that.
Sure, sure.
Thank you. Thank you for loving me enough. Thank you for caring about me enough to step out of your comfort zone to confront me on this, because I'm not easy." I recognize that and I acknowledge that. And one of
Come
the things that I
on.
worked on was becoming more receptive to hearing what other people have to say, rather than, "Here's my opinion and you should believe it."
Right.
So, and I think we all come to those moments separately. But for MDMA, for me personally, because this brain is like a thousand different voices, my mother's voice, my voice,
Mhm.
your inner healer, blah, 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 blah. And
Mhm.
then all of the criticism and all of the trolling that I still get, and all of the anti Semitic bullshit, and all the whatever trolling shit is waiting for me on Twitter after we're done, but whatever. None of it sinks in. None of it stays with me.
Uh-huh.
All of it is just like, whatever. It's wallpaper. You can
I
change
yeah,
that. You
I
can
have to say,
ignore it, right?
I don't doubt that that was your experience, and I'm glad that
I'm
it
not saying
helped in that
you
regard.
have to. I just
But
think it
what
would
I'm
be fascinating.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure I'd be fascinating under truth serum as well. But what
Yeah,
I
you
will
would.
say, what I will say is that I do that already. And I'm very aware that I have PTSD from a couple of different experiences. I'm very aware of it.
Hmm.
I have, and I'm working through it at the pace that I feel comfortable working through it. And I'm sure there's maybe a shortcut that exists. But I gotta
There's also
say,
psychodrama. Have you ever done psychodrama?
I
That's
mean,
something my mother and I
I've
talked
dated
about
a
this
couple of women,
week.
and I would define the entire relationship as that. But what
Right,
I
but it's the method of going into a safe therapeutic group environment and acting out your trauma so that you can work
no.
through it and have other people there as a supportive co-act. It's improv, but with less
No, I
humor
get
and
that.
more
I
self-reflection,
no,
if
and
you
I
wanted
understand
it,
that. No,
without drugs, without drugs.
no. I understand that.
Yeah.
I have found for myself, and this is not because I don't stiff arm my any of the psychological trauma or anything that I've had to deal with in my life. I'm
Mhm.
pretty confrontational overall, and in the areas where I have blank spots where I can't, which is where the PTSD would be. I recognize that, and I set myself on a path of slowly but surely, you know, baby stepping my way into a comfort zone around that, and then I
Mhm.
achieve certain um like advances. I don't know how you describe it, whatever, where I can put, okay, I'm able to do this now, and I'm able to do this now, and over the
Mhm.
years I've done that, and and that's enough to me. I have found for myself, and this is somebody who as an actor and as a human being, I don't think anybody has to think that I hide from emotions, like in anything
No.
that I've done. Like seriously, like I have no shame about any emotions that exist in me, unless those emotions should be shameful because they show bad character, in which case I fix myself. Honest to God, I feel like those tools are there for everybody. Now, some people, perhaps their trauma is too acute and too recent for them to get to that point. But I do believe you get to a where you don't get closure, but you get some distance from your problem. And obviously,
Mhm.
comedy is trauma plus time is the argument. And I think there is something to that. When you can start to joke about it is when you can start to heal about
Yes.
it. And so
Yes.
I've always used that as a functional tool, not as a escape. with, by the way, no lack of respect for escapism, because I think it has a tremendous value. I think a lot of people
Right.
should be able to shut off their, you know, the the busy brain that tries to get them to solve all these problems sometimes, because your brain can work subconsciously on some stuff without your like, I know the answer, I know the answer, I know the answer. Let's try
Right.
it, which is part of the problem a lot of times, which is why I love when I do pulp, any comedy I do that's just for the sake of laughing, just for the sake
Mhm.
of getting there, I think has the same intrinsic value as something that might be deeply moving because it's for the right time. I've had multiple people during Talk Soup. I got a letter from a girl whose father died while I was on Talk Soup, and she hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, but she came to visit him when he was in the hospital. He was there for like 6 months, and they
Mhm.
would watch Talk Soup together, and that was the thing. Like the piece, but like they suddenly like they started talking because they were laughing at what I was doing, and so she wrote this
Right.
letter that I let them off the hook. That's it. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
They all they needed to do was be let off the hook about this. And I don't need to dive into it. They didn't need to fucking what you did and what I did and what you did because he's gonna fucking
Right.
die in 6 months. There is no healing. He can't undo
Right.
it. There's no way to do it. There is only moving past it. And sometimes that's just fucking true. And that's
Yeah.
it's a hard thing for people to recognize. That sometimes it's just there's a reason why in society they used to whisper about a lot of things instead of bringing them up again. Like the old babushkas going, they got a divorce last year. Like you're right, yeah. The reason they do that is because it's not going to solve anything to talk about it. It just won't.
Right. Right.
There is no way to
Right.
heal it. It's the same way that you can never repay your favorite band for your favorite song. There's no amount of money and no amount of work around the house that you could do for them that would make up for what their song gave you. It's just not fucking possible. Let it go. Just be glad
Yeah.
it costs you 99 cents and go see their show every time they come to town and sing it at the top of your lungs when it comes in the car. That's all you can do. Because you
Yeah.
will never, if you try to materially put a dollar sign on it or a physical exertion sign on it, you will always be lying to yourself. It's silly. So um, I I believe that all the things that maybe drugs bring you are already in your brain. It's just another
Yeah.
way of getting there. So I I
Being
have
able
just
to
decided, right.
access it without it being a painful experience, I think, is what people should be after, right?
Yeah, but I think
Because
I think the perspective though, and the point I'm trying to make is the perspective that I have on that is that the pain has value in and of itself, and that therefore it's not there's no. I think a lot of people associate shame with pain in a
right.
psychological sense because they should have known better, they should have fixed it, or they should have been better, and they should have and they should all over themselves. And
Right.
whereas if they just let go of that shame and understand that and have some empathy for themselves and for everybody else. And if you live in that space of empathy, it's a lot easier to do.
It is. And if
Then,
you
yeah,
forgive yourself for things that you did a while ago
mhm,
because you thought you were doing the right thing or you were
right,
in it or you got such, it's like the fighter pilots in World War II. You get such tunnel vision, they would crash into a mountain that was right in front of them because they were so focused on a different target. And
hmm,
so it occasionally in life, and what I'm learning, continuously learning about myself, and especially through the eyes of other people, because you only know how you're being perceived by others if they tell you, right? So you're putting out messaging that you think is helpful, and then
and
they
it
turn
depends
around
on
and
that.
say
Also depends
you're
on how honest
focused
they
on the
are.
wrong thing.
Right. That
Well,
depends
no,
on
I
how
mean, it's
honest
just
they are or how much
honest
they
and how much
believe in
they
you.
care, right? And so I have this group of friends, my wonderful friends, who it took me a long time to find these people, and it took me a really long time to get into this community and trust them enough to really show them who I truly am instead of being like, oh, I'm tough and blah, 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 and
Hmm.
I talk all tough. Well, but I
Hmm.
break just like a little girl. So they felt like they knew me at this point well enough to say, you don't see what you're doing, but we do. And we
Hmm.
know what you want, but maybe try doing it this way. This way's not working. Do go this way.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Right.
So that's what I did. Instead
Which
of
is
instead of
yeah.
digging in my heels like the stubborn Taurus that I am,
Mm,
I said, okay, I'm going to open my brain to you. I'm going to open my heart to you. I'm going to allow this and I'm going to accept this with grace
mhm.
and humility and gratitude, because I can think I'm hot shit all I want, but if I'm not presenting it in the right way, people are like, I don't want that.
Right.
That's
Right.
negative. I don't want any of that. And instead, it's all about thank you and thank you and gratitude. And I love you and I appreciate you. And the humility of, people who took the time, like around the whole strike thing and Drew
Hmm.
Barrymore being a
Right.
scab. And then she dug in and then she said, okay, I won't do this. And some people said, well, too little, too late, Drew. And they're still mad at her. And other
Mm-mm.
people were like, okay, you listened and you learned, and I
Yeah.
will allow you the space to then forgive you and move forward. Now, I don't think Bill
What?
Maher is getting the same leeway, but my take
He's
at
not
first
asking for it.
was, well, you didn't, yeah. But like my take at first was, well, you didn't come to the right decision until you realized how much it was going to impact you financially. And a friend of mine took a step and said, is that really how you want to be?
Hmm.
Wouldn't you rather just be a person who forgives? Wouldn't you
Hmm.
rather just live in forgiveness and gratitude?
Hmm.
And I was just like, you know what? You're right.
Hmm.
You're right. So I went and I deleted that and I said, okay, I am going to make more space in my life for forgiveness.
Good.
And so that is a conscious effort. And if we can all just be like, I had an asshole moment and I
Hmm.
learned from my asshole moment rather than dig into it and be a bigger asshole, I'd
Hmm.
rather live in gratitude.
Yeah.
I'd rather live in
Jen,
a learning
Jenny,
space.
Jenny
I'd
Penny
rather
in
be
our
like
yeah.
scooped out like a pumpkin and filled with better things than
Well,
just refilling myself with the same shit.
Jenny Penny
What's
says
the
something
point?
really interesting in her thing. She goes, "I think Barrymore wanted to give people work," and that leads me to one aspect of this is that a lot of times the people who are throwing the stones from their own glass house, who may feel like on all the merits, as I'm looking at this person, judging them on the 3 points that I'm judging them on, they seem to
Mm,
deserve my criticism fully in this regard. Are not seeing the 10 other points that this person is saying, or do not believe they exist, or are totally nullifying them as existing as a possibility because it wouldn't serve their own argument. That reflecting on a possibility that this person might have other motivations beyond what your motivation might be would
mhm.
eat away at your assuredness about your ethical or moral point. And so you can still, I believe, the way you do it is incorporate those things into your thought and go, well, you have this option and this option and this option you should think about. If you're worried about your employees being out of work, do what Jimmy Kimmel did. And I've had my issues with
Right.
Jimmy Kimmel over the years, but he's paying his staff and his band and everybody during the strike
Right.
while they don't work. He just
Right.
like paid them to stay home.
Mhm.
Now, do I think the network should have strike insurance for their live shows? Yeah, I do, so that they can keep paying people even if they refuse to work because they're a signatory of both unions. But they're not. That's not a guarantee. That should have maybe fine. But the fact that Kimmel's doing it is good, and the fact that it's a possibility is something that she could think about. Now, does she make as much money as he does on that show? Probably not. It's a relatively new show. It's
Right.
daytime. Probably nowhere even near that. She probably doesn't have anywhere near the money that she could self fund everybody during a 8 to 10 weeks, whatever it was.
Right.
But you know, that factoring that in, saying those things, she would love to do what Kimmel does. She can't afford it. So these people won't have any work. So she's thinking, okay, if we don't use writers or we don't do anything like that, maybe I can just keep everybody. We'll continue to do the show because we're not really writing. We're just having conversations. And she's thinking about it that way. And everybody else is like, nothing new on television until this whole thing is resolved. And that's
Right.
where they're coming from, which I understand, but does
Yeah.
not factor those things in. And that
Right.
the artificial moral high ground part is the issue that I have. That's where that's always going to be the clip in your Achilles tendon, the breaking of your hamstring in your
Right.
moral uprightness will
Right.
come from your assumption that you know all the options the other person has and you believe they have been satisfied. And so therefore, if they're not doing what you think they should be doing, it's because they don't want to. It's what I often call the stroke of the pen fallacy that we've been talking about lately, which is this idea that with the stroke of a pen, Biden could get rid of student debt. No, he can't, and he never could. But he could do it. He's been doing everything he can do, but to them it's not enough because they still believe with a stroke of a pen he could do that because they're refusing to think of all the other factors involved. They're pretending they don't exist so they can have an artificial
Right.
moral high ground, which means
Right.
never mind patting yourself on the fucking back thinking that you're all that in general. Even worse, the aspect of you view this person as being evil. The only reason they're not doing it is because they're a monster. Because they could. So they either don't want it or they want the exact opposite of what I want. So therefore they must be a monster. To imagine thinking that
Right.
about someone else when you already have consciously eliminated some realities from your argument just to box this stranger in to some corner So you can make a judgment of them as if you even fucking know all the working parts. That said,
Right.
we can have all the political, slamma-jamma we want, and I'll call maggots in a joking way or whatever. But if any of these fuckers is trapped under a fucking bookcase that fell over, I'm going to lift it off them. End of fucking story. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to, it won't take any rumination at all. And anybody who would go, I don't know, it's kind of karma. That person in and of themselves has no moral high ground. They are not anywhere near, what they are selling to the world.
No,
so I think
proper karma for them is jail, not physical injury. We don't wish physical harm on anyone. We want them all brought to justice. You break the law, you go to jail. That's how it works. And
I would like Donald Trump to have 3 hots and a cot and a 8x6 cell and a regular wake up call and a nice cushy job in the laundry.
Sure.
For a very long time, and a 3-hole golf course just to remind him how he's playing shit golf for the rest of his life.
It's like a little putt green.
Yeah,
something.
Just so he can. Because that's even worse, wouldn't it?
Correct. Yeah. And maybe some time in the hole for Marjorie. There are things that we need to be seeing that we're not seeing. All of a sudden, eventually we're going to get. I have to believe that we're going to get justice from all of those people. It has to be coming. Yep. It has to be coming. I have to believe that. The people who are still bagging on us and we're like, we want justice. And we mean that for Democrats as well as Republicans. We're all demanding Bob Menendez be gone.
Yep.
Be gone,
Bye.
Bob.
Right.
You're making us look bad. Get the fuck out. See also John Edwards. See also Michael Avenatti. I don't include Al Franken in this because I don't totally agree with the whole Al Franken thing. But hey, Bob, this isn't the first time. Get the fuck out.
Right.
Bye-bye. Let's get a real Dem in there who can actually continue doing the job without being a distraction. And can Lauren Boebert go away? Lauren Boebert can go now. She's like, I have 4 sons and I have a grandson and I need to go pay attention. Bye. Bye. Go.
Yeah.
Take your fake boobs and your hand jobs and leave. Go. Get Santos out of there. Get Gates out of there. Get Jordan out of there. Get Paul Crazy Cuckoo Bananas Gosar out of there.
She can't leave them behind, can she? I mean, no, you can't. Never mind. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it.
Hey, they all can visit their grandparents in prison, those grandbabies.
Right.
I don't care. Stephen Miller's 3 under 3 are all welcome to visit their horrible father in prison where he belongs.
Oof. Yeah. So
I'm ready for all of that.
Yes, we're well over time or whatever. I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad you were here with me. Don't forget to get Tara's book. Okay.
Please. It's a rock and roll love story. It's the ultimate fan fiction. It is the most important thing to me that I've ever written. I believe in its power. I believe in its ability. It'll someday be a streaming series featuring Hal. So get in it. Because the more people that read it, I can show that I have value and I can sell a book and then maybe get a deal. That's just really, so I don't have to take a menial job that I'll be bad at and will be fired from in 2 weeks anyway, because I'm not good at it. So
that's the spirit.
I'm good in here. I'm good in here with the laptop writing things or using this voice. I
ain't nothing to it but to do it, baby.
It's doing it and doing it and doing it. Isn't that how this we started all the way back there? Yes, let's do that.
Yep.
Let's
all
do
right.
that.
Anyways, much love. Thank you, Tara. We will see you again
Al.
very
Happy
soon.
Birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It will be a pretty rock solid one. Bye. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I get out of here?
It's
How
okay.
do I get out of here?
There you go. You got it. You're good. And chat room, thank you guys for sticking around. We went a little bit long, but I think that's a good thing. Hi. So, and thank you guys for the support today. I'm sorry I don't have my watch or any of my stuff running, so I can't see the super chats that have come through. I need to, and I didn't go to the comm screen, which has the little stack of things that happen. So I will do a big muchas gracias on the second show today, if that's okay with everybody. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the Venmo. Thank you for the Cash App. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the eyeballs. Thank you for listening. And especially on a day like today when I can just kind of say my piece. If that's all right. I think today's, it's today. We'll just make this my birthday holiday is about saying your piece. If you know what I mean. So yes, I saw what you did there. It's good. good stuff. And in the meantime, I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And I will see you later on this afternoon. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else because it's my birthday. That's how shit works. All right. All right. And most importantly,